Go ahead.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. In accordance with 940 CMR 29.10, remote participation adopted by the Greater Lowell Technical School Committee, April 17, 2014. Mr. George O'Hare will be participating at tonight's meeting remotely. No in-person, that's not right? The no in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Yeah, good. Roll call?
Mr. Getchia?
Yeah.
Mr. Sheehan? Mr. Bahu?
Here.
Mr. O'Hare? Mr. O'Hare?
Mr. O'Hare, roll call. You here?
Yeah, that's
Mr. Tatsias?
Here.
Mr. Gigi?
Here.
Mr. Lemay?
Yep, you're on.
Moran? Mr. Moran?
Yes. Public appearance. We're going to suspend the public appearance portion and going right into the meeting. School committee communications. Report of the student representative. No. Approval of the minutes needed. Need a motion to approve the minutes from the
So moved,
June,
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
June 14th meeting. Roll call.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Here. Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Lemay?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
I think you got disconnected.
Those who are calling in need to mute they need to mute themselves while others are speaking. That's why we're getting the static.
Is Mr. O'Hare still there?
I think he dropped off. I think we lost him. You might want to call him back.
Report of the treasurer. Motion to waive.
Motion.
Second, motion to waive.
Roll call.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. Need a motion to approve the expenditures. Read it, Russ.
Yes, go ahead.
In the amount of $9,196,037
Mike. Go ahead.
and 25 cents. Need a roll call.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second,
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan? Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare? No. Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. Report of general counsel, not tonight. I'll be turning this portion of the meeting over to the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on the agenda, I would like to inform the committee that we were recently notified by Governor Baker's office that we have been awarded an FY21 Summer and Vacation Learning Program grant of $24,000 to provide summer and/or school year learning programs for students in response to the educational impact on school closures. A copy of the award letter is in the package, and we did use that funding for our summer school program this past summer. The second item on the agenda, I'm pleased to announce that to the committee that Mass Hire Greater Lowell Workforce Board has awarded an FY21 WIA Title I Youth Services Grant in the amount of $45,644 to Greater Lowell Technical High School to provide services to in-school youth, and a copy of that funding letter is in your package.
Thank you.
The third item on the agenda, we have also been notified of a grant by Governor Baker's office that we have received for Career Technical Education Partnership Implementation Grant of $200,000 pending final FY21 state and federal appropriations. And this grant is to support our partnership with the City of Lowell for our after dark programming.
It's great news.
You all set for now?
Yes, I think so. The next item on the agenda, I'm asking the committee to ratify the contract votes that were taken during the June 14th executive session for the following contracts: the non-contractual employees, the district treasurer, the senior assistant principal, and the director of human resources. I'm also asking for the committee's approval for one-year contract extensions with a 2% cost of living increase for the 2021 school year on the following contracts: administrators, cluster chairpersons, maintenance, custodial, and security.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve the ratification of contracts to all listed in our packet.
Thank you.
We're going to approve them all in once or individually?
Individually.
Okay,
Ready for the roll?
Would you let us know which one you're calling for?
So this one is for the non-contractual employees? Yep. Are we ready? Mr. Getchia?
yes.
Mr. Sheehan? No. Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. I can read it if you want.
Yep. Yeah, we'll need a motion, yep.
Need a motion?
Motion.
This one motion
Second.
For the district treasurer?
Yes. A motion to approve the 2% increase for the 2021 year to the district treasurer. Motion by Mr. Tatsias. Second by Mr. Getchia.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. Have a motion to approve a 2% salary increase for the 2021 and the addition of the proposed language changes as well as the contract for the period of July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2023 for the senior assistant principal. Motion to accept.
Motion.
Second?
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. Motion to approve the salary increase and the addition of the proposed language changes as well as the contract for the period of July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2023 of the Director of Human Resources. Need a motion? Mr. Tatsias?
Second.
Mr. Bahu,
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias? Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. Have a motion to approve a one-year contract extension with a 2% salary increase for the 220, 221 for administrators. Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. I have a motion to approve a one-year contract extension with a 2% salary increase for the 220-21 for cluster chairs. Motion? Need a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. I have a motion to approve a one-year contract extension with a 2% salary increase for the 2021 school year for the maintenance. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias? Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. I have a motion to approve a one-year contract extension with a 2% salary increase for the 220, 221 for custodial employees. Need a motion? Mr. Tatsias?
Motion. Second.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. I have a motion to approve a one-year contract extension with a 2% salary increase for the 220, 221 for security employees.
Motion.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias? Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. Can I have a motion to approve the revised 220-21 school calendar? Motion? Motion. Yes.
Second.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. And I have a...
Hello?
Good? Good?
Are you moving forward with the plan?
I'll be back to the superintendent, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the interim assistant superintendent principal, Mr. Horton, to come forward to present the 2021 substance use prevention and education plan and the 2021 bullying prevention and intervention plan for your approval.
So, good evening, everyone. The first plan that I'd like to discuss is the 2021 Substance Use Prevention and Education Plan. You notice that the only changes are in red, and we're changing the title from guidance counselor to school counselor, as well as the date changes. Substance Education and Abuse Plan is a comprehensive plan that outlines the drug and alcohol use that's prohibited by students to use. It also indicates the definition of a drug-free school zone, and it also talks about the training that's provided for teaching students and faculty members about substance abuse, including tobacco, alcohol, and drug abuse. It discusses extensively students' self-management skills for students to improve their identification of drug use, as well as their methods of treatment and rehabilitation. It also outlines and describes the consequences for possession of tobacco products, as well as drugs and alcohol. It also describes in depth the screening tool that's used by professionals in the school district to gain more awareness of the level of drug and alcohol abuse for students. Lastly, it provides resources and professional development that we offer our teachers to understand how to identify students that have drug and alcohol abuse issues, as well as resources to referral services, both within the building and exterior throughout the community. Lastly, it describes our collaboration with families to provide support for families, education for families, as well as other resources that we can provide for them. On the back page, I'd call your attention to the protocols that are used for when the main office identifies students who are in violation of school code of conducts relating to drugs, tobacco, and alcohol. It gives you a sequence of processes, if you will, that students go through when found using those substances. It also talks about when a staff, parent, or a student can refer someone that's using illegal substances. And you can see the subsequence of steps. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna ask for a vote of approval from the chair.
Mr. Chairman,
So,
go ahead.
I'll wait for your comment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to vote to approve the 2020-2021 Substance Use Prevention and Education Plan.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes?
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Okay, and the next plan to review is the 2021 Bullying Prevention and Intervention Plan. Again, I'll call your attentions to the highlights in red. The distinctive change, two distinctive changes in this plan are the state's change in words from victim to target. So people who are identified as targets throughout the plan are defined and described in the consequences and the treatments and the steps that the school would do to identify bullying and to provide resources to prevent it and methods to prevent it is described for targets. And secondly, I think the important part is it expands the definition of bullying and expands the definition of cyberbullying in red. So as you can see, for bullying, it's described now as including but not limited to a whole host of members of our school community, including educators, administrators, school nurses, cafeteria workers, custodians, bus drivers, athletic coaches, advisors to extracurricular activity or paraprofessionals. As well as cyberbullying, it's changed to reflect the technology of the day. So previously in the bullying plan, it just described technology. Now it describes in depth things such as transmission of whole or in part by wire, radio, electric, magnetic, photoelectronic, photo-optical system, which essentially says new methods of technology such as iPhones, iWatches, things of that nature are now used to identify cyberbullying. So these changes will now be brought forward to the faculty and staff as well as other members of the school community to identify their role in preventing and identifying bullying and what to do to report it. So, thank you.
So I'd like to ask for a
Need something.
vote of approval.
Mr.
Do you have an in-house committee that suggests these changes, or?
We do. A lot of these changes are dictated through Human Resources Department and the School Counseling Department through communications from the state. For example, the change from victim to target,
Yep.
as well as the language that's been updated. So it's really the School Counseling Department, along with Human Resources, that really focus and identify changes that need to be made in the processes, along with the main office to decide to include these things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask for a vote of approval.
So moved. Move approval.
Second.
Mr. Getchir?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
yes,
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
So the next item
Thank
on the agenda is a discussion of the reopening plan. I'd just like to ask Mr. Barton if he could remain there
Sure.
and assist with the presentation. So So I'd like to begin this evening by saying the planning of reopening of school during a global pandemic has been a very, very complex task. And before I begin discussing the plan, I just would like to acknowledge a group of people that came together to develop this plan, and I want to acknowledge them for all their hard work and dedication through the process. So first, I'd like to thank our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Barton, who worked tirelessly, as well as the members of our reopening task force, and acknowledge them for all their hard work and collaboration through the process. So thank you to all of you. This plan has definitely been a team effort, and very much appreciated. So in late June, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education asked school districts to develop a reopening plan with 3 models: an in-person with returning meeting safety and health requirements, a hybrid, which is a combination of both in-person learning and remote learning, and a remote learning model. We began the process here at Greater Lowell Tech, as I said just a few minutes ago, by formulating a task force with the goal to safety transition as many students as possible back to school for in-person learning, at the same time taking into consideration all the health and safety measurements in order to minimize risk. So our decision-making process included an examination of many scenarios in determining our most likely course of action. We considered a variety of factors, including health and safety factors, which would be a minimum of 6 feet optimal physical distancing, supported by the CDC. We considered teaching and learning, what would be the best teaching and learning options for our students, and opportunities and limitations of our physical building, which included an analysis of the number of classrooms, classroom sizes, technical program areas, and alternative spaces in order to accommodate all the health and safety restrictions that we needed to implement in order to get students safely back into the building. And we also considered financial and human resources. What would the cost be to the district if there would be additional costs in order to get as many students as possible safely into the building? So as a result of our study of classrooms and classroom sizes and being able to meet the 6-foot optimal distancing in order to ensure safety for all students and staff, we realized that many of our classrooms could not meet the optimal 6-foot safety distancing, and we could not fit safely our 2,311 students in this building. With that said, as a result, we are proposing a hybrid learning model on a continuum that we'll be talking a little bit more about, which is in our plan, a phased approach to safely transitioning to a full in-person learning. Okay. So hybrid model A. So just a little bit about a hybrid. Hybrid means it's a combination of in-person learning and remote learning. And our plan phases in 3 modes of hybrid learning. The first phase is hybrid mode A, which is 1 day in person and 4 days remote of A and X week for all students. Wednesday is a school-wide deep clean where everyone would be working remotely from home. This hybrid model would allow 6-foot safety distancing and the best ability to maintain health and safety measures for all our students and staff. It would allow for 6 to 10 students to be in an academic classroom. It would allow for 5 to 8 students in a technical program by grade level. Students with intensive special needs will come to school all 4 days and have 1 remote day as recommended by the Department of Education to accommodate our students with intensive needs by bringing them in for in-person learning as much as we can. And it would allow for our basic English language learners to receive an additional period of instruction on their in-person learning day. Also included in this model, siblings of any of our students would be placed on the same day to accommodate for siblings and for families. This would accommodate, again, 25% of our student population, which is approximately 613 students for phase 1 of our opening in hybrid A mode. Moving along to the next phase is hybrid mode B, which is phase 2, which we would consider at the end of quarter 1. Hybrid mode 2 would allow us to increase to an additional technical day for students in grades 10 through 12 on their shop week. This would allow for 4 to 6 foot safety distancing, not optimal, but improved to maintain health and safety measures. And it would allow for 10 to 16 students in a technical program by grade level. Our academic week would remain the same with 25% of the students continuing to receive 1 day of academic instruction. Hybrid mode C, which is phase 3 of our reopening plan, would add an additional day of academics for all grades. This would allow 3-foot minimum safety distancing, 12 to 20 students in an academic classroom, and it would really be based upon the 6-foot optimal distancing being reduced. It would be based on the health and safety measures throughout the communities. It will also be based on if there was a decrease in the restrictions to buses, because we would need additional busing, and if the restrictions to busing wasn't reduced, the cost for busing those additional students would have a significant impact on the budget. So those are our 3 phases of our hybrid learning model. Continuing to phase 4, which is a full in-person mode. This would be 1 to 3 foot minimum distancing in the most challenging environment to maintain health and safety. As I discussed earlier, after doing our feasibility study, we could not possibly get all of our students into the building under the current restrictions and guidelines, the health and safety measures. So the health and safety measures would have to be completely lifted for us to be able to safely fit 2,311 students into this building. The last model is the full remote model. This model is an option for families currently as well, along with the hybrid. Those families who choose to want a remote model, or those students who possibly can't come back to school because of health conditions, they can opt for remote learning. And again, we would fall back to the full remote model if the current public health data would become increasingly negative. We would go back to the full remote mode. So those are the phases and the learning models included in this plan. A big part of coming back to school in the fall is health and safety and adhering to health and safety measures. One of the biggest requirements will be masks and face coverings. All students and staff will be required to wear a mask, and there will be planned mask breaks throughout the day to accommodate for students and staff. The physical distance is another critical aspect of returning students to school. There will be an optimal 6 feet distancing to help mitigate the transmission of the virus, which is critical and recommended by the CDC currently. Hand washing is another big aspect, and hand sanitizing is critical. Students and staff will be required to wash their hands or hand sanitize frequent times throughout the day. And I think I referred to it later in the presentation. We have installed hand sanitizing stations in every classroom, and they're frequently all over the building, so people will be able to hand sanitize as much as possible. Another big aspect of the plan for health and safety is, can we move to the next slide, Mr. Burton? Sorry, is staying home when you're sick and self-screening at home is going to be important for both students and staff to self-screen every morning and determine whether or not they're feeling sick. If they're feeling sick, they should stay home. If they're exhibiting any signs and symptoms of COVID-19, they should stay home. So this is a critical aspect of maintaining health and safety in the school environment that everyone will need to do. Another important aspect of coming back to school is, no, I'm sorry, I'm on hold now. Now it's Mr. Barton, who is going to speak a little bit about what the hybrid learning models are all about.
Okay, thank you. So the first thing I'd like to say to all of you is that the school district has full recognition that hybrid learning is not the ideal learning mode for a technical high school, and it is certainly not an entirely substitute for in-person learning. With the health and safety measures and the DESE guidelines that Superintendent Davis described, we've made a commitment to providing the highest quality education we can for students that come here in their in-person day as well as their remote days. With that being said, we've put in measures throughout the summertime as well as measures into the fall to ensure that we can provide the highest quality education technically and academically for our students. So to begin with, we have preserved the program of studies throughout our school district that we've offered in previous school years. So for example, every course that we have offered in previous years will continue to be offered. That includes both academic and technical courses. The hybrid model also enables students to meet all of their teachers and their fellow students in person, as well as attend all classes remotely that are required for graduation. It allows students to access counseling services each week and provides a point of contact each week for students who have special services such as special education and English language services. In addition, it provides physical education time for students that, for athletics and for recreation. In order to equip students for hybrid learning, we have started a Chromebook distribution schedule. So for example, this week and last week, we distributed to the 9th grade class as well as the 10th grade class, over 50% have already received their Chromebooks. In addition, we have indicated to our families that for students who don't have internet access, we will provide hotspots for them. In addition to that, we have provided or will provide for certain technical programs that a Chromebook is insufficient. For example, CAD or engineering or carpentry, the program that needs a more robust use of technology, we will provide that for them, as well as software that they can benefit. So the software that they would be using in school will also be used on the Chromebooks, laptops at home. In addition, throughout the summertime, we've ramped up our commitment to our presence online in terms of providing students with online resources and access, including online textbooks, online resources, print and non-print materials so that teachers can use them on a regular basis. As well as we've increased the seriousness of hybrid learning. And if you recall in the springtime, the Commissioner of Education in the Department of Ed strongly suggested, and I think required to a certain degree, a pass-fail grading system. We also, we implemented that. So for this year, we are implementing the traditional grading system of A, B, C, D, or F, as well as we're adding remote learning comments on the group, which will be on the report card. In addition to that, attendance will be taken every day. It'll be taken remotely. It'll be taken every period, as well as in person as well. Furthermore, we have emphasized in professional development, and will continue to emphasize in professional development, that having small groups of instruction is in many ways a benefit. It can provide one-to-one instruction, small group instruction to perhaps when those students are in person, which is obviously a very critical day, to provide as much training and education to take those students further along, and to keep the technical program as strong as we can possibly do. So with that, as technical instructors and as academic instructors are teaching their students in person, students at home will be following them simultaneously remotely as well. So the idea is to try to keep continuum as much as we can, so to provide education and provide support for students on a daily, regular basis. Last, certainly not last, but I'd also like to point out that the Department of Ed, and this I think is an important aspect to understand, the Department of Ed has technical frameworks. So there are technical guidelines or frameworks for every single technical program, as well as academic programs. Within that technical frameworks, as I indicated, and I fully, I think we all recognize, and certainly the task force does as well, that there are 6 frameworks. 2 of those frameworks emphasize in-person learning, and they emphasize the hands-on learning. That is why as all of us know, that is why our students come to our school. That is why our parents send their children to our school. So out of those framework strands, there's safety and health, as well as technical knowledge and skills. Fully admitting that is the critical backbone of an in-person learning program in a technical school. However, there are also 4 other strands that need to be recognized, need to be emphasized as we progress through this hybrid plan. And those strands are embedding academic knowledge and skills into the technical programs. For example, communication in the workplace, legal issues in the workplace, career exploration. In addition, there's employability and career readiness strands, which includes conflict resolution in the workplace, career exploration, resume writing, online job searches, cover letters, public speaking. And I would add that a lot of the research that we've done over the years is that it indicates that when students do go out on co-op, or when students do go out for job interviews, they have come back and reported to us that they have wished that they have a stronger ability to speak in public, to answer questions, to write resumes, to write cover letters, to search for jobs online, as well as do research in terms of when you are hired. For example, another strand is management and entrepreneur knowledge and skills. So for example, starting a business, owning a business, dealing with financial concepts associated with your technical trade. All of those things are emphasized by the Department of Ed, and this is an opportunity to, again, reacquaint ourselves with these strands and also improve upon them, recognizing that, again, in-person learning or one day a week, we recognize that there is no substitute for in-person learning, but considering the physical distancing requirements and the health and safety, those are things that need to be emphasized. Lastly, we've committed to a considerable amount of professional development this summer, and we're going to be continuing that throughout the next 10 days of certainly the opening of school and into the fall. So those are really the considerations that are outlined for the hybrid learning plan. Thank you.
So we'll continue just overviewing the rest of the plan. Again, we were talking about health and safety measures, and facilities and operations is a critical aspect in ensuring health and safety measures. They're cleaning and disinfecting the building in a more aggressive way, multiple times a day for touch point areas. Twice weekly, we're doing deep cleaning, one on Wednesday, and they'll be doing another deep cleaning on the weekend. and also weekly cleaning ducts and windowsills, and all this additional cleaning and disinfecting to keep our buildings safe for our students. Before we move forward with this slide, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge at this moment, the custodians, Mark Vernon, the custodians, they have done an amazing, incredible job since March, disinfecting this building, sanitizing this building, rearranging furniture, helping us analyze the 6-foot distancing restrictions in classrooms, and really working hard to prepare this building for a safe opening for our entire school community. So I just want to say thank you to all of them, that their hard work is extremely appreciated. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So as we're moving forward, another big aspect of health and safety in reopening is our ventilation and HVAC system. As you can see, we have one of the most updated HVAC systems as a result of our recent building renovation. Our unit filters are changed out and replaced 4 times a year. We're upgrading them now to the state-of-the-art MERV 13 filters, which will give us better air quality and flow. Our units operate on a 16-hour cycle, Monday through Friday, which is important. And we just increased our dampers to bring it up to 15 to 20% of outside airflow coming into the building in all classrooms, shops, and offices. We also are going to be keeping our windows open throughout the building to increase the airflow and ventilation. And our air cycle changes approximately 6 to 8 times an hour for 12 to 16 hours. So it's important to know that our ventilation system is ready for reopening. Next is food services. During our reopening and in our hybrid learning mode, we are planning to provide meals for our students both on in-person learning days and during remote learning days. Students on in-person learning days will be able to take home up to 3 meals for their remote learning days. We'll also be continuing our grab-and-go lunches where families can come to school to pick up a grab-and-go meals on students' remote days as well. For breakfast we'll be serving in classrooms, and we'll have an extended period 1. So as students enter the building, they'll get off the bus, come into the building, grab a breakfast, go up to their period 1 classroom. They'll eat their breakfast, and then their period 1 class will begin. Again, minimalizing contact and interaction, and just getting off the bus and going directly to their first period class. For lunch students will be eating in the cafeteria. We also have an outside tented area through the month of October, weather permitting. Again, our cafeteria will not look the same. All the tables that are currently there are being removed, and desks, as we are sitting at tonight, will be placed in the cafeteria 6 feet apart, facing in one direction. And Mr. Barton, how many seats can we accommodate?
141 that are 6 feet apart, and, I'm sorry, 141.
141 seating in the cafeteria. I don't think we'll need all those seats at this time. I think we'll need about 130, if I'm not mistaken.
138 is our largest lunch period, which is the 7th lunch
largest-
period for freshmen.
Is the largest lunch now. We also have the outside tented area, as I said, weather permitting. That's also another area that teachers can go to bring their classes to for a mask break. There's going to be 2 tents outside where the graduation ceremony was, and there's also going to be a tent outside of the basketball courts near the boys soccer field. Next is transportation. So there has been some transportation restrictions. As you can see, our normal bus is now limited to 25 students on a bus. No one could sit behind the driver, and it's sort of a zigzag seating to accommodate for distancing restrictions. Siblings can sit together in the same seat. If they go to the same school, they can sit together on the same seat on the bus. Masks are required on the bus. Students should enter the bus and head to the back of the bus, and seating from there. Students will also be required to hand sanitize as they enter the bus, hand sanitize as they exit the bus. The bus windows will remain open, and students should remain seated with their masks on during the bus ride.
Superintendent,
Yes.
will the bus company supply the sanitizing?
So yes, the bus company currently is going to set up the sanitizing.
Joe,
Yes.
on most of the cleaning and the cleaning on the weekends, is that gonna be our in-house people?
Yes. Oh, it's a deep clean from our in-house people. We
mean,
have we have,
Except for the duct work and that, you know what I mean?
they are cleaning the windowsills and doing that, yes. We do have some specialized machines, those electrostatic machines that our custodians will be using to deep clean.
What kind of, you mentioned deep cleaning of the rooms. How do we ensure that the deep cleaning is effective? Is there any testing method that's going to be utilized throughout the school
So
year?
those electric static machines, and I think, is Mark Byrne on the line? Actually, I don't think he could have gotten on the line till a little bit later, so I know he's not on the line.
I don't see enough.
He's not. So those electric static machines, so you enter a room and you spray down the room and it sort of settles.
No, I understand that, but is there a way to test to make sure that what we're doing is effective? So, you see on the news all the time, you breathe into a petri dish and it shows that the bacteria is there with a light. Is there any way to ensure that our deep cleaning is being effective and that we don't have a spot that's
I would need to
Problematic.
I would need to refer to Mark Byrne.
okay? Because I would think there would be some sort of testing to ensure that the deep cleaning's working.
I can refer to Mark Byrne for that. So the next area is athletics and extracurricular activities. The MIA postponed the start of the fall season till September 18th. However, yesterday, we were giving an update, so I'm not sure this is in your packet, but it is up on the slide right now, that boys and girls soccer, cross-country, golf, and girls volleyball will be able to operate for fall. Football is on hold until, I think, February and March, and I can update you more when we get more information from the state. But as far as fall sports, with some restrictions, these are the sports that will be in operation.
So are we bound by the governor on those restrictions?
So there are health and safety restrictions that are recommended by the CDC. I would say they're very, very important to follow, yes.
So they're all, it's, obviously, it's a fluid situation, so it's always subject to change.
So exactly, so it changes, it could change daily, weekly. This plan is a very fluid plan that could change whenever we get direction that we need to change, based on the public health data, based on the Commissioner of Education, working with the governor. Changes are likely and could be expected at any time.
Health Department.
The health department, it could be expected at any time. As far as extracurricular activities, we're considering doing some clubs remotely. We're asking teachers to propose a plan of how they would implement a club remotely. And currently, we're not permitting outside groups to use the inside facilities at this time. So we're not allowing outsiders to come into this building to use our facilities for extracurriculars inside. We are letting people use our facility outside. So I think that's the presentation of the last slide
Jill.
together. We are smarter, and stronger. And I believe the collaboration and commitment of the entire school community in developing this plan will help us to be successful in getting our students back to school as safe and secure as possible.
I just want to back up on one thing. They're not permitting the outside groups to use the inside facilities at this time. And then earlier, we got the grant for the career and technical for the after dark partnership with Lowell.
So that is still occurring?
Are we sure we want to go through with that? Shouldn't we probably talk to the state and say due to what we're looking at? I just don't think it's beneficial to bring more kids into the school on top of our kids.
So I
Even
think-
though it's after, I get it's after dark, but due to what's going on right now, I just don't think, this is me personally, I'm not speaking for anybody, I just don't think it's beneficial to go ahead, especially seeing Lowell right now is thinking about doing full remote. If they're not safe to go into their schools, I'm just bringing in extra kids on top. I don't think it's a good
I
idea.
can't speak for,
I understand that. I don't even know what they're gonna do, but I'm just thinking that I think maybe we should see if we can put it off a year.
right, and I can look into that, but I think based on the commitment and the funding that we received, we're obligated to move forward. We recently met with some of the staff from the city of Lowell to begin to recruit for students to come into the program. But if you are concerned, I can definitely contact the state and we can have a conversation. They would be coming into the building once our students left. However, we would have to re-sanitize our rooms after they were here on the one day they would come for in-person learning, and that would be in the area of programming and web and the area of machine tech. Again, we don't have a number count yet. We're just in the beginning of Lowell is just in the beginning of the recruitment stages. The program is set for 30 students. I don't recall the exact number that Lowell said they had of interested students at the time. But if we are concerned about bringing others inside, I can definitely have a conversation with those individuals at the Department of Education to discuss that.
I just think it'd be prudent to look into it to see if we could delay it a year until we can figure it out. I mean, like the custodians have done a great job. There's no need to add extra burden to them. You know what I mean? Because now they're gonna clean and re-clean.
I will do that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good point.
Are there any other questions regarding the plan?
Will our hallways be one way?
Yes, after the meeting, you could take a walk up to the third floor. I think the third floor is almost done. We're starting for the third and going down. So we are going to be marking our hallways and our stairways. I would say sometime by mid-week next week, it should be all complete. But we do have a whole system of how traffic will flow around hallways. So most of our hallways and stairways will be one way going up, one way going down. And there will be a whole traffic pattern.
Will there be a temperature check?
No, there will not be a temperature check.
Why is that? Seems like temperature checks are.
The Department of Education and the Center for Disease Control are not recommending temperature checks for students at this time.
It seems like it's a risk if we're not having a temperature check, just
So
because.
there's other symptoms in addition to just having a temperature that are COVID related, and they're not recommending at this time. They're recommending that parents and students do self-assessments at home, and if they're not feeling well, they should stay home.
That becomes a risk. Would it be that difficult to have a temperature check of every student walking in the building upon their entrance? Because once they're in, they're essentially in, and we're not taking.
There's also accuracy with some of the machinery in regards to temperature checks as well. If that's something you're recommending, we can look into that.
I think it has value, personally speaking. I know every time I walk into the office at work, they're checking everyone that comes in to ensure that our temperatures are not, greater than 99.5, because I guess that's the first, way to identify if someone is ill.
It is. We're also asking them before they even step on the bus to assess that at home.
Yes, but we don't know that they would be doing that.
One of the things that you might be able to do is to take the temperature, because it sounds like you can only have 25 kids on a bus. It would go fairly quickly. As the kid enters the bus, you hit them in the forehead with the laser. That group of kids is all cleared to come in, and then it's the ones that are being dropped off or driving themselves. That's a more finite number, maybe, if we could break it down to get them while they're getting on the bus.
Is the busing company willing to do that?
No, the busing company, it's not their responsibility. They would not do that.
I also see the busing here, those seats and the red dots on it look like they're 3 feet apart. So 3 feet seems to be the minimum distance when we have to get the kids here, but when they're here, it's being recommended that we keep them 6 feet apart.
Hold on, I think the state of Massachusetts.
I'm not sure.
Go ahead. You know better than I do, Ms. Superintendent, so go right ahead.
No, you go ahead, Mr. Pablo.
As far as I know, the state of Massachusetts is allowing in the classroom the students to be 3 feet apart. You can correct me if I'm
It's a
wrong.
minimum, anywhere from a minimum of 3 feet to 6 feet. We are choosing an optimal 6 feet of distancing at this time for safety reasons and to have a phased-in approach. This is very unprecedented times, and to have maximum safety and minimum risk, we are choosing and committed to the 6 foot of distancing.
So if we're choosing optimum
Oh, you look better.
space apart, why wouldn't we be checking their temperature coming in the door?
We're not required to check.
Well, we're not required to have 6 feet apart, therefore we could allow more students in.
If you would like, we can look into checking temperatures. That might require extending the school day, because it might take more time to take everybody's temperature as they enter the building. It's gonna require more, it might require more adults to also.
It should go
do that.
fairly quickly based on the amount of students that are coming into the building. It's not like we're getting 2,300 students in the building, which would also be a requirement of the teachers as well, I would guess.
I would, is Miss Tierney on the line? Kathy, are you on the line? No, I don't think she is. I
I'm on
would,
the line.
who is that?
Hi, George.
I would need to look into that further and check with Human Resources.
Kathy Tooney is on the line.
Oh, Kathy. Kathy? I guess she's not. It's something we can look into. We can talk about it. I'm not sure we could get thermometers here and develop a system before the start of school, but it's something we can look into and try to do if that's what the board is recommending.
Do we have certain exits they're coming in off the bus and from the parking lot?
Yes?
Okay, so, all right, so,
So we're limiting our entry points because as they get off the buses, they're grabbing their breakfast to go upstairs.
I mean, I know at work, I gotta take my temperature every day, pop it in and go, and answer 5 questions. If we do that, and I'm not saying we're going to, it just seems like if we have the entry points down, it should be quickly, boom, you're under 100, go on. It'll also protect the teachers from the students, because if we're dropping off hotspots and kids are taking 3 lunches home, I'm not gonna say all families, but it'll be safe to say that they're not gonna take the temperature coming into the school.
Just
So I'm not saying all families, I'm saying some. Maybe they don't have thermometers.
Just a random thought here, there's statistical testing too, where we don't have to test every kid coming through. We could do every 4th kid, and hopefully that will catch statistically the right number that will be all right. The drawback to some of these thermometers, it takes a couple of seconds each one to read and register, and you can't move. So it depends on the quality of the thermometer. But I think if we did it on a random, every fifth kid or every sixth kid coming through, it doesn't sound like the way it's being proposed, that we're gonna have more than 25%, so that's 500 kids coming into the school on any one day.
Right, no,
I don't think the number is
It's
insurmountable.
613 kids coming into the school every day.
With the special needs. So I think that would reduce the time, and we have them at the entrance. We just have to do like every other kid or every fourth kid, and hopefully we catch the one that. And then I also think when we do the deep cleaning, we have to have some sort of swab test to make sure our cleaning is effective on a regular basis. We could say we did it, but if it's not effective and we're missing a certain area or something, maybe some type of random testing may be acquired. Because one of our goals here is to keep the children safe and to keep the teachers safe and all of the employees in a safe environment. And if we have this regular testing in place, that ensures that we're trying to do our due diligence. And I think most of the facilities that I have been in from the outside going in, there are temperature checks. Private industry has a lot more resources available to them than maybe the public, but I thought we received a grant to kind of ensure some of these PE.
Well,
type things.
PPE, yeah, we used a lot of money to purchase PPE.
It came out of what, the CARES Act?
Yeah,
Okay.
So I don't think it's a bad idea to have thermometers, but maybe not every kid, but to kind of keep it so we can get them all into school as soon as, and seated as quickly.
so I would just need to look into if someone other than a nurse could do the temperature checks as well. And if we would need to hire nurses to do that.
Why? It's push a button and you're under 99.5.
Because I don't think it's currently in a job description of a teacher to do that.
Well,
Might be able to find some volunteers in the community to ensure the safety of our kids.
It's,
it could be a security guard, it could be a hall monitor.
I'm not sure it's in their job description to do that either.
We can ask them to do it
We
based on
can,
these,
we can.
based on these
But I'm not
times.
sure it's part of their responsibility to do that.
I'm not sure if everybody's gonna go right to, their contract in these, very different times. So I think if we ask a hall monitor at the start of the day.
Well, I
to-
think I would need to question how close contact you would have to hold the thermometer, and that would determine whether or not people would want to get in close contact. The distance of holding that when they do the temperature checks, you're getting pretty close,
Sure, we all have a face mask on.
right? So
Wouldn't it be an
that's
early-
uncomfortable
an early
for
nurse?
some individuals to want to do that. Which I'm saying, it would be a nurse's responsibility. I'm not sure other people outside of the medical profession would feel comfortable doing that. So it might, if this is something that we're looking into, it might mean that it might require some more nurses. We have 3 nurses currently on site. We are posting for substitute nurses as backup.
And let's be real, substitute nurses are not going to be flocking anywhere these days because they're all overwhelmed, I would say.
Yeah, it's a concern for us as well.
But to see if the communities would, somebody that works in the building, some people, I mean, it would require, my guess, if there's 600 students coming in per day, 500 students coming in per day, 7 volunteers would run 70 temperature checks each. Those temperature checks take me 5 seconds.
We don't have that many entry points into the building. So our entry points into the we're limiting entry points so our entry points are in the mall, has 2 entry points. The athletic pavilion is another entry point, and the staff and student parking lot is another entry point. So
So,
there's 4 entry points into the building.
question, at these entry points, the kids are gonna be now consolidated,
No, there's a plan.
okay? And
They have to be 6 feet apart when they get off the bus, so it's going to be,
so we're gonna have bodies there to ensure that works. Why can't those bodies hit the kids in the forehead?
I'm not sure I can answer that question now. I'm not saying that I don't want to ask people to do that. I'm just not sure it's part of their job responsibilities, and it's gonna be a willing task to get individuals to do other than a medical professional.
Another note on temperature checks in the chat. A couple of administrators have chimed in, as well as Mike McCarr, that the CDC isn't recommending it
Thank you.
because of the level of inaccuracy behind it. So we're following a CDC guideline more than anything else here.
Thank you, Mike.
Joe, this is Kathy Kearney. I am on the line.
Okay, Kathy.
I apologize.
Could you help answer my question a little bit? Possibly about having someone other than a nurse take a temperature?
Yeah, I mean, I think they would have to be properly trained. And I know, I think sometimes it sounds so simple about taking a temperature, but there's actually a lot of details to taking an actual temperature. Then there'd be, we would need to probably equip that individual with protective gear. Like I said, the CDC is not recommending temperature checks just due to the high inaccuracy ratings on those temperature checks. So for all those reasons, I mean, we wouldn't want to be sending kids home or isolating individuals due to inaccurate readings, and there is a high probability of that.
Well, if we were to
Plus
get
all the
it,
other additional symptoms that potentially go with the virus that are in addition to a fever. A fever is not the sole criteria, but it's someone that potentially has some type of infection going on in their body.
again, I don't think we would send the child home because he had a high temperature. We'd put him through a further screening and a school nurse at that point can then take the temperature effectively and professionally and then go through the questionnaires to ensure that there are no other symptoms. So what we're doing is we're using it just as a primary screening device. And then if a child is over 99.5, then you farm them down to the nurse, and the nurse then does the protocol. She's the one that's qualified to do that. And then we're ensuring the safety of the entire student body because we have a 2-level check. And what I'm hearing here is I'm hearing a lot of opposition and no solutions. And I was always taught, if you have a problem, let's see what kind of solutions we can come up with to resolve that problem. And everyone's got an opposition, everyone's got a position, but I'm looking for solutions here to ensure the safety of our employees, the administrators, and the students. And is that a layer that's to be ruled out? It might be, but I'm looking for those types of layers to ensure that we're doing our job as a committee to ensure the safety here at the school. So I'm open to any suggestions. And the CDC seems to have misled a lot of people over the course of this virus. It used to be a contact virus. Now I'm wearing a mask. So there's a lot of misinformation that has occurred. And I just would like solutions. Let's try to get the school and the kids back in their traditional learning because it's problematic right now.
So I guess to answer your question, Mr. Gigi, we can look into temperature checks and we can look into who can administer them and how we can create that process. Again, it's not recommended by the CDC. There's inaccuracies, so I think we would need to really sit and discuss and talk about how this process would develop and if at all we could implement the process.
I also recognize that it is time consuming and we're on a very tight schedule. And that can be a challenge for everybody because I understand that you work tirelessly, and same with Mike and the administration here. And we come in here and once a month and we throw all these monkey wrenches in the works and we're not working behind the scenes. I recognize that, but I'm trying to find a solution to get, and I'm not so sure that I'm in agreement with the 6 foot over the 3 foot. If the CDC says 3 foot is adequate and we're in a demographic where we're not in a high COVID area, maybe we can broaden that to the 3 foot.
So it's a minimum of 3 feet, but the CDC is still saying to eat, you have to have 6 foot of distancing to eat.
I get that. Now
And
we
to be able
have,
to remove your mask.
we have outdoor tents That's where our problem is going to occur. So I'm trying to think outside the box for other solutions other than the mainstream, send them to the cafeteria. The cafeteria may be inadequate, but we might be able to put up a tent for a relatively short
So
amount of money.
I think I did say that we do
I know
have
you get two
some-
tents, I heard it.
Yeah.
So those are solutions to the 3-foot rule. If you need 6 feet at the lunchtime, then we can see what we can do to facilitate that, if that's gonna be our bog down situation. Get more kids here and more days on school.
So it's, the lunch situation is part of it. The spacing and the workstations and the technical programs is another part of it.
And to say what Mike said, and I don't want to take all the time here, everybody else may have an opinion, but technical school, we're a technical school. The kids truly need a certain number of hours of hands-on training with the equipment, the people, the personalities. I agree with Mike that some of that business savvy sense can be done remotely. But the training itself, what our main principle and purpose here is to get the kids so they don't have to go the traditional route of education, that they can go directly into the workforce. And that requires them to be here and working in the shops.
Right, but for them to be here, we have to set up certain safety parameters for them to be safe.
Now we're doing a balancing, and I'm hearing our safety, we're deep cleaning the building, we're doing everything, we're ensuring the protocols before they enter the building, and then the risk within the whole community is somewhat diminished. We're different than some other communities. And I'm wondering, how do we get the kids back sooner than later? And I think that's my main issue, and I know that you're working on it. I saw the phased-in plan, but maybe we can skip phase 1 and go right directly to phase 2, where our community is somewhat protected, I guess, or guarded.
So I made a commitment to the school community in regards to 6-foot optimal minimal distance to begin to reopen and phase in. And I just believe that the health and safety of our students and staff is our top priority. And just as the state phased a reopening, I think it's important for us to phase a reopening. And that's what we're doing by phasing in 25% and then getting those 25%, and then we'll bring in another 25% to ensure that our transition is safe. And using the 6-foot optimal is, there's a little bit room for risk, but when you start to use the 3-foot, there's no room for risk.
That school bus is full of 3-foot.
That
And
school
so
bus
they're
also
put in that
The school
environment.
bus also has windows that are gonna be kept open the whole time, and that's about airflow too. It's just like they would be outside with windows open. So in a classroom, it's not the same.
Well, I think the airflow, the HVAC that you described is about the best we're gonna get, right?
For our school building, yes.
And that's really great that you did
You're
that.
sleeping 6 to 8 times per hour.
Yeah.
Everything that the CDC is recommending for proper HVAC and ventilation, we have here in the school. Again, it's not just one health and safety measure, it's a collaboration of all of them that help decrease the risk factor, right? It's not just one, it's all of them together. And I think when we transition to a reopening, to have optimal safety upon transitioning is critical. It's new for everybody.
So, and it's well recognized, this is unprecedented. The other thing to enhance the airflow within the classroom, put a couple of big fans in the windows so that you get more circulation right directly out of the
So
the building.
you're prohibited to use fans.
We are?
Yes, we are. The fans circulate, I can't think of the word. Can someone help me with the word? The fans
They
to
counteract
circulate,
the
to
HVAC.
circulate germs and move germs around if they were there. So fans are prohibited.
If
No
they're pointed
fans.
outside the building and not trying to just blow it
No
cold around
fans
it?
are allowed.
Jill, did we take a survey of the teachers, many are coming back, like in technical?
So right now, we asked people to be honest and let us know if they weren't coming back, and many of them have let us know, but they can let us know at any time.
No, I understand that. I just wondered if we took a pre-survey of who's coming back on the technical side and the academic side.
So right now, we have, I mean, it's really something that,
Yeah, we won't know till basically game.
it's something that fluctuates. I could say we have this many teachers now, and 2 weeks from now, I can have more again. It's based on their medical conditions and their childcare.
Right. I guess why I ask is, on hybrid A, I just have a problem with, I mean, I came here and I know everybody's worked hard. You, Mike, the reopening committee, everybody that's been in the building, the administrators, the secretaries, Mark Byrne, the custodians have all done a great job, and everybody's worked hard. And I want to acknowledge it. I mean, I want to make sure everybody knows they've done a great job, the reopening committee. I mean, I know they worked hard on these options.
No,
And my only
65,
problem is.
65 staff members.
Right, no, look, I'm not taking anything away. They did a great job. Everybody in this building has done a great job. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are right now talking about options if it wasn't for Mark Byrne, the custodians. I mean, move the desk 3 feet, 6 feet, 5 feet, 4 feet to get us where we are today. And I just want to make that known. I guess my problem's with the shop hours. And hybrid A is going to give these kids 12 hours a month.
So their remote hours will count towards technical hours.
I understand that, and I understand what Mike said about, the threads and, I think the cover letters and the resume writing and the public
Those are
speaking.
the soft skills that,
Right, no, I understand that, and me, that could be under English. I'm the nuts and bolts guy. You can't wire an electric panel remotely.
and I can't move an electric panel that's in the shop that's
Well, no,
less than 3 feet next to the next electrical.
I understand that,
That
and-
puts two kids 2 feet away from each other.
I understand that, and I'm not, trust me, I do it for a living, I get it. I can't plumb a wall in shop without someone 3 feet next to me. I get that. We have limited space in those shops. I understand that. But I've taken texts, calls, messages on social media from parents texting me saying, look, 12 hours isn't cutting it. In a normal week, it's 32 hours we get credit for, 64 a month, 198 a quarter. We do it this way with 12 hours a month. We're getting 36 hours and a quarter.
So I can
I
tell you
mean,
that
actual hands-on time. I'm not talking
students
the
will still
remote
be
time.
getting OSHA, they'll still be getting their credentialing, and they'll still be getting their accumulation of hours. They will still be able to earn that.
Remotely, not on, and I'm gonna be missing out on a lot of other stuff, setting up, prepping.
So they'll be in person for one day, and again, that one day that they'll be in person, it's going to be in a small group, so the attention that they'll be receiving when they're here is significant.
But for 5 hours. That's my hangup. I honestly believe we're
So
doing
5
these.
hours in a secure environment for health and safety,
And,
to me,
okay,
is,
in a secure environment. Dunstable in the last 35 days hasn't had a positive COVID test, nobody under 19. Tingsboro, since the first week of July, has had one positive test under 19. That person was under 4 years old. Drake has 8 active. I believe a 16-year-old tested positive. We don't know if he goes here. And Lowell, in the last 6 weeks, have had 3 kids test positive, under 19. Now, we don't know if they graduated. These numbers, and if I put them all together and average, right off the state website, August 5th of 2020, the 4 communities together are at 0.8. CDC's 5%. The state right now is testing at 1.4. That's back on August 5th.
CDC still has not reduced their recommendation as 6 foot being optimal. They
That's
have
to
not-
eat.
CDC has not reduced their recommendation as 6 feet being the optimal for reducing risk.
So then why do we have hybrid model B at 3 feet?
So it's between 3 and 6 feet. 6 feet is optimal, 3 feet is minimum. 3 feet is minimal. So the more you go below 6 feet, your risk factor increases.
And I get that, and these numbers right here from all four communities on 8/12, 0.80. Last week, actually yesterday, the 19th, we average all four communities, 0.65, so it's going down. And I'm not saying it's gonna continue to go down, but these numbers aren't lying, and that's what we go by. Today, Baker was on saying, hey, I don't know why the kids aren't coming
What I'm
back.
saying is, I think transitioning back into school needs to be phased in, just like the state phased in reopening, and not rush something when there's so many, when things change on a daily basis. So in order to secure the safety of staff and students, I'm committed to the 6 feet.
That's fine. So on hybrid A, what do we have? I'm looking at this, what's it, 566? For kids coming in, or 613?
It's 6:13.
So why aren't they all in shop for a straight week then? Put them in shop, academics is all remote. Then we can take the academic room, hear me out,
Okay.
hear me out. Then we can take the academic rooms, we have 10 days, and prep them to a temporary shop. They can still get their OSHA hours, they can still do their OSHA, and everything you're seeing remotely, right in the classroom, right from their
And what
laptop.
about supervision?
We have paras, that everybody's academic gonna be at home.
So paras are in a classroom with a teacher, not
There
alone.
won't be a classroom here for academics, so it frees up the paras. Put them in the room, and what I'm saying is,
There are classrooms here for academics.
with this plan, but if we're gonna bring 613,
47 students with intensive special needs will be in the building.
Okay,
And the
so-
paras will be attending to those students.
I guess Shawshine's doing a week of shop, a week at home.
So Shawshine's population of the week that they're doing is exactly what we're bringing in, a quarter. Their week is our quarter.
So how's Greater New Bedford doing it? They're bringing their kids in half. They're 200 students less than us. They're bringing them in for 3 straight days of
I
shop.
haven't reviewed Greater New Bedford's plan.
I'm just going
I'm worried
down.
about Greater Lowell Technical High School.
I am too, and I'm worried about our children, and I'm worried about the sophomore that lost 3 months of shop last year, who's now a junior, who, if we go with Plan A here, is gonna have 36 hours of shop at 6 months.
In person, but
In person.
they will be getting hours, and they will be accumulating the hours they need.
And I'm a big proponent of these kids, and I'm being told by parents, they want to learn with their hands. That's why they're coming here. And I'm wide open to anything. But what's not fair to these kids, now let's use that sophomore going into his junior year. He's going to have 6 months.
So I think
Being
I'm
in
being
shop for
fair
36
because I'm
hours.
ensuring their safety. To me, it's about safety. It's a change. It's a big change. School is not gonna be the way it used to be. There's masks, there's physical distancing that they're not used to. There's a whole bunch of things that they need to practice and get good at in small groups before you bring in large groups of students.
I'm bringing in the 613 that you're bringing in and putting them in shop. It's the same amount of people, it's not changing.
So, again, what are we doing with the
shed some light on
600 freshmen? They'll never
You
get a
can,
day
well,
in school.
okay, so how is Assabet bringing in freshmen and juniors on one week and sophomores and seniors on another?
Like I said, I haven't looked at everybody's plan. How is Assabet? I would need to know details. Is that a half of a day, a full day? What is Assabet's total population?
Well, we went total population at New Bedford, and they're bringing in their kids a full day, 3 days on shop. The other half
So
of
3
schools.
days on, 3 days,
And then
3 days on.
they do a 6-day rotation. We do five. Their shop is 6 days, and it rotates. So they're bringing half their kids in, strictly shop for 3 days, the other 3 are at home, doing academic remotely. On Thursday, the other rotates in for Thursday, Friday, and Monday. The people that are Monday through Wednesday are at home learning academically. They have the same, it baffles me, and their numbers, their COVID numbers are yellow. We got 2 towns that are white and 2 are green, and Drake is trending down. I'll be shocked next Wednesday if they're still green. And these numbers are lining up where, and I understand, my whole thing is, and I want everybody safe. We're not giving these kids enough shop hours. And in good conscience, I sat in that seat. Matt, you sat in that seat. For 12 hours, I'm telling you, you're learning bupkis. Yes, the teachers are great, but they're not getting enough time with these kids. in-shop, hands-on hours. Remote's all well and good. If we could teach from a YouTube video, we wouldn't have Greater Lowell.
So one of the things that we considered in looking for solutions to provide a more comprehensive plan for technical students. So when we were thinking deeply about how do you bring back all of the technical kids and provide them for more time, one of the most significant challenges that we discovered was even at 6 feet or 3 feet, you couldn't bring back sufficiently in a safe distance, whether it's 6 or 3 feet, for all of the shops simultaneously. So there's 23 technical programs, 6 feet or 3 feet. There were shops that we just could not bring all of the kids back. Okay, so there were shops that were so highly subscribed, okay, because they're so popular in the economy, that we couldn't provide for all of them. So in a solution to that, one of the reasons why we decided to start with 6 feet of distancing is to provide a universal standard to allow everyone to transition back into the building, everyone, including all the shops, granted 1 day a week, as well as providing academics in terms of equity. We realize that as we go further into the quarter, if we're lucky, kids will end up going back onto co-op and clinical. I pulled the co-op numbers this morning, and I'm hoping that as more kids get an opportunity to go to co-ops such as plumbing, electrical, the size of the shop will be reduced so we can therefore allow more kids to come in person, okay? Because right now, I can safely say, looking at every room and measuring every room, we can't let everyone back 6 or 3 feet in every single shop, okay? Even at these scenarios. So the hope is to, as we progress and as teachers become more comfortable with remote learning and with hybrid learning, and they're able to configure their shops in a different manner, we can let more kids in. If we looked at hybrid B and I compared New Bedford's plan, we would be very close, if not on par with New Bedford when we move to hybrid B. Plus, we would be providing academic education when it would be in person as well. So those are some things I think that went into the decision making.
Let me ask you, we have some shops that we don't have the shop space, correct?
We don't have the shop space, or we don't have the classroom space that's associated with the shop.
Right, so the related room.
And secondly, the other consideration was the freshmen as well. So in order to provide an adequate exploratory program for freshmen, because the freshman numbers are very high, the relationship between allowing more technical kids in as well as allowing freshmen was a strain on the buses, as well as the lunch situation, which is a critical phenomenon because you can't get around lunch, it's gotta be 6 feet apart. So it really comes down to trying to fit them, trying to feed them, and trying to get them here.
So let me ask you a question. The shops that are overflowing, such as plumbing and electrical.
And others, there's 13.
Okay, the 13 shops.
Sure,
We looked at, did you measure the academic rooms? Because the kids aren't gonna be here.
we did.
So you measured the academic room, so with the half-foot home, we don't have the room for 1,200 kids?
So we can't feed 1,200 kids, so that's one problem. So that's primary problem. And then the busing issue with shipping 1,200
The
kids here.
busing's covered under
So-
this,
so
the
there's-
COVID relief fund, we can get the money there.
Okay, so feeding them is still a concern. But if we were to transition kids from shop into classroom, it does become a supervision issue. I understand that you recommended pairs. However, there's 23 different shops and there's 13 shops, so that would require 13 pairs who aren't trained in technical safety and supervision. So
It's a supervision issue.
it is a supervision issue, it's a safety issue. One of the things that concerns us is if students aren't supervised and they are required to wear masks, kids being kids, they may pull a mask down. That creates a really difficult potential liability issue for teachers and the whole school community.
So how are we gonna get these kids the hands-on shop hours? We're gonna wait till the first quarter, they're at 36. 36 hours, now think about that, 36 hours in 3 months of hands-on learning.
Right. So there may be some solutions to that, as, School Committeeman Gigi pointed out. If, in fact, public health numbers get better and we are able to provide after-school activities or what have you, perhaps we will then have the opportunity to double up on hours to provide after-school instruction if in a safer environment, so that perhaps you know, those hours that, you know, that we're talking about can be made up, you know.
I guess I'm at a
if that's
loss
a
when you.
possibility.
I guess I'm at a loss when you say that the numbers get better, because Dunstable is at 0. I don't think you can get better than 0.
So I think
Kingsborough's
we're
at-
talking about our.
I'm talking about the COVID numbers, though. That's what we're going by. Kingsborough's at 0.48. They're in the white. Drake is at 0.81. They had 6 positive tests in the last 2 weeks. If they go to 4, they're in the white.
Right, so-
So we have 3 white, 3, according to Baker's plan and the Department of Education and DESI, we could potentially have next Wednesday, 3 towns in the white, Lowell in the green, still well under the state testing average.
So I guess what
And we
you-
can't bring in-
your
we're gonna give-
recommenda- What you're saying is you are recommending 3 foot to start. You just want to start right out at 3 feet, because that's
If
what
the
you're
numbers are
recommending.
dictating that, yes. I mean, these are I'm not making the numbers up.
I understand, but I'm not recommending that. And a reopening task force of 65 members of the school community are not recommending that either.
And from the political environment out there, I'm hearing that they're trying to push it all down to the lowest level to make the decision based on, and I always hear data. I'm hearing data here saying we're a pretty safe community. Do we really need to start at the 6 and then go to the 3 in phase 2, which is pretty much a quarter of the year done? Or can we accelerate that? Or is there some middle ground that we might look at? Because I'm also hearing that the cafeteria is going to be our bottleneck. Are there any rooms available where we could put some students so that they can eat lunch? Or can we line it 6 feet down one hallway that's not being used, or the gymnasium, which I don't think's being used? Or at the pool, you know, you probably can put 50, 60 kids in that particular area.
Well, can't we also take half the kids out of the classroom and send them down to the cafeteria, and the other half of the kids can eat right in their classroom?
Again,
That's another option.
That's a 6-footer.
It becomes a supervision issue.
We have enough bodies in the building.
Actually, I can speak a little bit about that, because the lunch issue was really a paramount one. It was really critical in the decision-making for this. So there's 5 lunch periods, and the preliminary suggestion from the Department of Ed was to have all the kids eat in the classrooms. They can take off their mask and you eat in the classroom to avoid cafeterias. And that's where we had started our research and started our decision-making. The problem is with that is there's 5 through 9, according to the schedule, and we did look at trying to make alternative schedules, teacher schedules. There's only 34 teachers that can actually supervise a lunch period in a classroom. However, per period, there's over 50 lunches in the classrooms. So we don't have enough teachers to cover individual classroom lunches. So as a result, we had to look at the cafeteria. And we had to look at the cafeteria as an opportunity to see where we can fit kids in 6 feet apart. And that lands on 141 students, with the highest number being 138. We've looked at another alternative area, which, you know, the mall area, for example, that can fit between 35 and 50, depending on how you configure it. So that's just some of the research that I think helps point to looking at why the lunch period is so critical and why there's really a shortage of people that can cover lunch periods, given their contractual requirements as well.
And how about the gym? I heard somebody mention the gym.
So the
Tarp off the gym and put some desks there?
So the gymnasiums are being used because we again are committed to our program of studies, which includes physical education.
So physical ed
We
takes
unlike-
priority over vocational training.
So
we unlike-
unlike many school districts, did not lay off our physical education staff. So we were committed that we thought an important part of a student's well-being is physical activity and exercise, and we thought it would be important that they continue to receive that here at Greater Lowell Technical High School. So we continue to keep physical education as part of our program of studies.
No, I agree with you, but the first 2 months, we got a soccer field, a football field, a baseball field, they can do gym outside. If it rains, then we figure it out.
So I don't think that's, we need more of a backup plan than just figure it out on a daily basis if it rains, because we're talking about a lot of kids that we need to put somewhere if it rains. So I couldn't take that
What do we have-
chance. So we're committed to a schedule of a physical education schedule to allow for that. If we didn't create a schedule, then
How many kids,
Could we not do phys ed on Zoom as we did prior to this time?
Yeah, they could do their jumping jacks.
So I think.
That's how they were
So
doing
is
it.
this to alleviate what issue? To bring more kids in?
That's correct. And to give more kids more academic as well as
I think I
technical
can,
time.
I think I can see both sides of the aisle here. I can see where the superintendent is coming from. I can see where Lee's coming from, being a former student here.
bless you,
Shop, this, that. The bottom line is, this is all new to us. We have to develop a plan. As much as we have a great 75-acre campus, no one's ever faced this before. None of us are physicians. I'll be the first to say I don't have all the answers. I'm a good listener. But I think what I'm hearing Jill say is, we have to start somewhere, and maybe, hopefully, as things progress down the road, we can maybe implement some things like Lee is talking about. But we have to start from the ground floor and work our way up. And we have to deal with what we have at hand, staff, students. We don't have these answers. We have to open up and find out. And then we have the governor, who's done a very good job, that could change things in a week. And we're not gonna have any say in it.
It seems to be.
Or we could have, open up and have a couple students come down with COVID and maybe have to shut down. We don't know. It's a very fluid situation. I'm concerned as a committeeman, as a parent, and I want what's best for the district too. That's why I think in part we hired Jill Davis, but I think she's putting her best foot forward. I just think we have to start somewhere, and I've read this somewhat. It's a lot to comprehend. Again, I'll be the first to say I don't have all the answers, but you know, parents are concerned too. It's
My only concern is, you're right, but we only got the kids for 4 years.
yeah, I
We have
understand.
a job to educate these kids and train them vocationally. We're a vocational school. That's our charter. Some of the academics, and they have certain minimum requirements. The workforce wants to see them meet certain requirements. They already lost March through June. With this plan, they're gonna get 36 hours the next quarter, and then we got 2 more years. And it's just, the slower we take this on without the data supporting that we have to go at that slow speed, the longer it's gonna take for our kids to get to where they have to go. I feel like we're letting them down. We're balancing health and safety, and I think we're making an informed debate here. We're balancing health, safety with education. We can always take the path of least resistance. We can take the most secure route. If we accelerate the plan and we end up in a bad situation, we made a poor decision with the data that we had. We're gonna have to look at this and move forward in some fashion. I acknowledge that Jill and the administration has put a lot of time and effort. I think sometimes it's on a very conservative approach. That's because they work here in the school. I really believe that. And you can't say that these two people in this room and the administration don't put the kids number one. You can't say that. And it's a balancing test, and I'm saying the data doesn't support it at the level that the government's pushing it down to our community. We might be able to look at a 3-foot restriction and moving it in a faster direction. I could be entirely wrong. If we get 2 kids that get sick, it's different than the colleges. The colleges, those kids are away from their parents for the first time. They have some independence. They don't understand all the risk. Kids in high school still have to go home to their parents and listen to the adults that surround them while they're within the time frame. So if you try to put it in the same category as the college, and they're shutting down Chapel Hill, and they're shutting down Michigan State, Notre Dame is
Notre Dame.
segregated, yeah. That's a whole different genre of kids. Here, we still have some guidance and control. We can ensure that they wear the mask properly, which I'm not doing right at the moment because I can't breathe.
It's Bill's masks too. We're gonna talk about that later on.
Well, the Bills have a best shot at winning this year. So it is a slow process, and I recognize the debate. There are 2 sides to this equation. With all the information that we have, is there a consensus? Do we accelerate the program, or do we go with the administration's recommendation?
Or is there some middle ground?
We have some and we got a time constraint too. We're down to 2 to 3 weeks to implement this. And I think that's our biggest problem is the implementation if we choose a different direction than what the administration is suggesting. And I'm guess there's been some committee people here that haven't really weighed in yet, and I kind of would like to hear what they have to say. And then we're gonna have to move on from this, or we'll be here debating this for weeks.
So I guess if I could chime in, me personally, I want everybody to come back. Like, we need to come back, we need to go to school, but again, obviously, that's not gonna happen. Like, they're not allowing us to do that. I get what everybody's saying, and I understand that, you need to take a slow, cautious approach. And again, I want to reiterate that I want to come back full tilt. Like what Lee said about the numbers, the COVID numbers, in our district, I think we could come back, to full days, but I get the administration's, approach, a slow, cautious approach. And I think that, hearing everybody, we gave Jill the superintendent's job, and I'll throw my support behind like how she wants to start the school year. But again, if it was up to me, I'd come back with everybody in the building instantaneously on day 1. Because the kids are gonna lose something out of this, but as Curtis said, Baker could come out tomorrow and say, that's it, we're shutting everything down again. We're going back to phase 1, then what do we do? I mean, it's so fluid that this stuff changes every day. I mean, on a local level, the federal level, I don't believe anything that they say because when you listen to the CDC, the stuff literally changes every day. Like let's take busing, for instance. First it was 12, and then what was it, like 36 hours later, it's 25. That might even change before school even starts again. Because they're just constantly coming out with like new things.
They need guidelines to go by, and that's what all we can do.
And I tip my cap to the governor. It's an unprecedented time that everybody's in. Like, who the hell thought that a pandemic was gonna hit the United States? Like, you see that on the news in other countries and stuff like that, and you just change the channel. Like, we're in this now, so we're dealing with this. I think it is unfortunate that you have 351 cities and towns that have to come up with their own plan. Like, there should have just been something from the Department of Education that said, this is what we're doing. This is what your school year looks like. Now, we're tasked with, what do we do? Like, I think that there should have been more from the top that was handed down. But again, that's just my own personal opinion.
George?
If I might chime in, I think we've given Jill and Mike an impossible task to give these kids the education that prior years have gotten, to get that. There's no possible way we can squeeze in the education that classes that preceded this have gotten in the amount of time that they have. We've already missed so much school. I think the idea of accelerating things is good if we can. But doing it as safely as possible. And I was wondering if we can move from phase to, phase 1 to phase 2 as fast as possible. Given, if, who decides when we go from one phase to the next?
I think that's up to us. We set the parameters in the plan that we would look quarterly at it based on the data and based on the data, if the distancing was relaxed a little bit in regards to busing, in regards to classrooms, to be able to get more kids in here safely, and in regards to shop space.
Yeah,
I and I think the task force really believe that starting off the school year, right at 3 feet leaves no room for any risk. It's just,
So to Councilman, Committeeman Tatsias, can we start off at the recommendation by the administration and in 3 weeks implement phase 2 if nothing occurs?
I'm not sure we can do that. I think we really need to look at, again, our numbers. There's 13 shops. There's 13 shops that we're looking at now that can't fit 50% of those students. I think what we're waiting for as time progresses to see if students go out on co-op. Because right now, we know that the medical students are prohibited from going out on co-op. The early childhood students are prohibited from going out on co-op, so they are going to be within the building. We know that one of our employers, IBM, is not hiring co-op, which was a big employer this year. So we know those students are in the building. So we have a significant amount of seniors that are in the building, in our shops, that normally would not be there. We're also a building that's over capacity. It's nice to have high
It's not gonna change to
enrollment.
the end of the quarter. It's gonna be the same problem. And yet you're implementing phase 2 at the end of the quarter, if it all goes well.
No, we're hoping that we're hoping that some students do go out on co-op. We're hoping that students go out on co-op. We're going to be working with teachers to try to look at space and see how we could, when teachers come back, to see how we can reorganize things, if we can.
So one of the things that I think we can consider, and certainly we have considered in terms of timeline and what it sounds like are monitoring measures. Right now, we're operating on with some unknowns and some knowns. So we know that we cannot provide and we cannot adequately service in the technical shops with 6 feet or 3 feet for everyone, okay? Based on the master schedule and based on the students that are placed there on paper right now. However, as school opens, we intend on monitoring it closely. What we're going to monitor are the following things. One, how many businesses hire our kids for co-op? So that will factor in hugely in these shops that are hugely subscribed. So if we do have a lot of employers subscribe kids and hire kids, then that will allow us to potentially bring more kids in. But we won't know that until we start school and things progress, okay? So that's one big factor, potentially big factor. Another big factor is the number of number of families that opt to do exclusively remote. So we did a survey, we got over 55% of respondents. They indicated that 15% of them indicated that they would go exclusively remote, okay? So that's a good number and it will factor in hugely, but we won't know until school starts. So once school starts and we start to monitor these measures of co-op rates, co-hire rates, remote learning rates, then we can make a more informed decision of can we accelerate that reopening perhaps sooner than a quarter? That factors in hugely, but we won't know until school starts. So I think one of the reasons the task force and the leadership team decided on this approach is, again, it provides a universal standard, it provides equity both in all the technical shops and the academic shops, and it provides the same program of studies. If we can do that and we can monitor that as things go further, we'll have more data to see if we can move that up more rapidly. But that is a real difficult decision to make, not so much, or give you an answer at this stage. We have to see what happens, essentially.
Because if 15% are opting to do it remote, that's a little over 300 of our kids.
Well, don't forget, it was only 55 responded, but, if the
All right,
trend
so
stays the
the
same.
model is
Correct.
skewed.
Yeah. But we don't know
How are they
yet.
going to get their certified hours then?
It's a great question, and that's part of the conversation I've had with the cluster chairs and the director of school counseling to inform these parents of, the ramifications of that decision. And that's something that, as we did some more education with parents and parent evenings, people have called and inquired about that. I can't give you an answer on how that will happen because I'm not sure what the state boards will say in terms of kids that have opted for exclusively remote. That I can't answer at this time.
So Paula, do you have any thoughts?
What's that?
Do you have any thoughts
I
on,
mean, it's all over the place here, but I think I had the superintendent to do a job, and she's the leader, and she's also gone along with the state, and I see, and I was a shop teacher myself, and part academics, but I think that some areas it would work, some areas it won't. I kind of think at this point, go with hybrid A, and bring in the 600 kids, 1 day a week, and then, and hopefully, after the first quarter, that'll change. I think the part with taking temperatures, I think that's a really important thing, you know what I mean?
as a culinary professor or teacher in your day, how are the kids going to learn how to cook and do that without the
Yeah, I
hands on?
mean, they're in close proximity of each other. You know what I mean? So to say, you're there, it's,
Well, again,
that's very difficult, you know what I
these
mean?
guidelines that are handed down, anywhere, like, let's say hypothetically you did 3 feet. There's no way in like culinary arts that you could do that. Because in a kitchen, I mean, you're side by each, just working. Like, that's just how it works. When, you're installing whatever, like, there's a guy, they're side by each. Same thing with like plumbing and all this. It's the,
Auto, how do you?
So let me ask you a question. Is hybrid B off the table, the 4 to 6?
Is hybrid B off the table to start?
To start, at 4 to 6 feet, physical distancing guidelines. It gives the kids 2 days of shop.
So I am not recommending hybrid B to start school. I just think we need to start with a safe approach. And we need to start to get students in, get students acclimated to what school is like now, wearing masks, taking mask breaks, following different rules for transitioning, following different rules for eating, following all new sets of rules that school does look different. So I think it's critical to begin with optimal safety. And that's why I'm gonna stand committed to safety right now.
So what I'm hearing is we're going to disregard the data in the community and opt for the safest plan to the detriment of the kids' education. So we're disregarding the data in our community.
And we're actually waiting as far out as we can to see if co-op comes in the way, or to forget the idea of maybe reducing the gym to, maybe you can use them have gym in classrooms, or use half the gym and half the gym goes outside, or half the
Again,
classrooms can be used as gym at a smaller scale
education has
to satisfy a lunch. That's what we're trying to do here. So we can get more students in here if we can use the gym, but we can't use the gym because we have to offer full gym. We don't have to offer full gym.
So-
We can offer part gym. We can do things to get more students in here and do it at a faster pace
So-
than just say, we're gonna wait 12 weeks to see if we get co-ops, to see if we're able to go ahead and come up with some plan and dance around it. And realistically, what does it look like 12 weeks from now? Oh, we really don't have the co-op numbers. Oh, we're still using the gym the way we did. We are doing a disservice to our children that want to come here and be work ready when they get out of here, which is in a very short time. Accelerate this. Let's move some type of acceleration to this rather than saying, we need to wait 12 goddamn weeks.
So,
I'm hearing that the committee on a whole is amenable to starting off with the administration's plan. I think there's some pushback by some of the members that they'd like to see that accelerated a little quicker than by the quarter. Is there a way, Mike and Jill, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, that we can actually maybe accommodate some middle ground here?
I would think it's a wait and see attitude.
at this
No, you
time,
gotta
I'm
see
still
how it
committed.
goes,
I
how it works
disagree.
out.
I disagree with your comments,
I don't know how
Mr.
you can
Bahu,
make that
about us
decision.
not wanting to use the gym to get more students in here. The gym isn't gonna allow more students in to shop.
It's gonna allow more students in the cafeteria.
Okay,
It was
that's,
clearly stated.
that's one portion, yes, we can accommodate to get more students to eat. But what I'm hearing, the priority is to get more students into shop. And what I'm saying now is, it's not optimally safe to bring those students into the building now in the shop. The CDC is recommending 6 feet as optimal safety, and that's what we're committed to doing to start the school year, to ensure safety. We're not saying that we never want to bring more kids in. We're saying that we want to phase them in a safe way.
In hopefully 12 weeks.
So
And
I
12
think,
weeks
I
may
think,
not
I
work.
think safety in life before education is critical.
Yeah, it's all
The
critical.
health and safety of our students and staff and their lives is critical before learning.
Nobody wants to
Right?
see anybody hurt
Is
or
critical
harmed.
before learning.
You're making this all
And that's
about-
where I stand about commitment to safety prior to learning and doing things slow to secure, to make it a safe transition. Yes, I'm committed to that. There's 65 other individuals in this building that were committed to that. I've worked in this building for 25 years. I've dedicated my life to education and the students of this community. And by no means, do I not think that education is a priority. But right now, in a pandemic, I believe that the health and safety of our staff and our students, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that, and I'm committed to a slow transition back to school. And that's where I stand on it.
I guess I must have been misunderstood. There's 613 kids on hybrid Model A.
Yes.
Okay, all I'm saying is put the 613 in the shops. If we're gonna make temporary classrooms in the academic rooms, figure it out. It gives them 90 shop hours at the end of the quarter instead of 12. 32 a week, put them in shop the whole week. If we have to break it down, freshmen at week A, sophomores at week B, juniors at week C, seniors at week D. We have 4 weeks a month. Break it down. We need more shop hours. I'm not saying put anybody at risk. I don't want anybody yelling, crying, whining. All I'm saying is get more shop hours for these kids. We need more shop hours. And if we can do it one whole week a month, there's 32 hours that these kids are credited for. The other 3, academics, the other week, they can be doing every other week, like Mike is saying. Online learning, those 4 days, 5 days. We need to figure out the slow roll with more shop hours. There's 613 kids coming in hybrid A. Get them all 613 should be in shop. Get them in shop somehow.
But can I just speak about that?
Some of them are freshmen.
So just to consider,
1 week will be freshmen.
but but just to, if you look at the management of these schedules and these proposals and some of the thoughts, it's to be, whether it be 6 feet or 3 feet, not everyone can be provided for. So the decision has to be made of which shops can come and which shops cannot. Because given that you have to provide academic education, whether it be in person or remote, the decision really comes down to, are there enough hours in a week, given these scenarios that I think, you're pointing out, can you provide that within the time and learning and within the framework of a weekly schedule? And having looked at it deeply for the last 2 months, it is, again, almost impossible universally. That's the challenge, 6 to 3 feet.
I guess
So
we're still
even
in
at
for a loop. How are the other schools doing it?
Well, I can't.
Use New Bedford, Greater New Bedford.
Yeah,
How are they doing it?
I can't speak for Greater New Bedford because I don't know the specifics of their sizes of their shops, how they're laid out. I can't speak to the specifics for New
programming.
Bedford. I can just speak to the comprehensive examination that we've done at our school, which is incredibly thorough.
I'm not
So-
saying it's not thorough, Mike. I'm not
No,
putting
I-
blame on anybody. I
no,
know
I
you guys have
understand.
worked, lack of a better word, your asses off here. I know you have.
Right.
I'm just saying we're not giving these kids enough shop hours. There has to be a way to give them more shop hours in a month. We're giving them 12 a month, Mike. That's not hands-on. That's nothing. Let's be honest, that's nothing. There's gotta be a way in that week to give them more shop hours. That's all I'm saying. We're keeping the same 600 kids here. I'm not saying bring in 800, 1,200. If you want to slow roll it, we need to get 613 kids shop hours.
Well, but
That's what I'm asking.
Can I
Not
just
really
speak about that though?
613.
So here's the thing. If there's 2,300 kids in our school, okay, and you take out 600 freshmen, if you just take them out, that's 850 kids each. Okay, so if you take 1,700, all right, which is an A and X week, and you take 850, so that is a week of shop, okay? The question becomes, how do you fit that 850 in terms of six feet apart? You cannot do that. Within 3 feet, it's still an incredible challenge, okay? In terms of, I think, and I haven't looked at the gymnasium, Mr. Bahu, but if you look at busing and you look at the adequate shop experience and the adequate spacing, okay? It is an incredible challenge, and I'm not sure it's possible. And I think that's what we're seeing, and I think that's certainly what the task force said. So again, it's, really in terms of management, contractual obligations, supervision, health, safety, data, numbers. I'd love to be able to say, make it work. I would really love to say that, and I think Ms. Davis would too. But the challenge is, I really don't want to be faced with a situation where we invite kids back on September 14th, and we cannot manage that adequately in shops, 23 shops, and academic classrooms, whether it be academics all go remote, whether it be in technical programs. I can't predict a complete operational management of this school district, given that there's inadequate data at this point.
Can we talk about things?
I'd love to be, I'm sorry, but I'd love to be able to say, bring them all back. That was the operating premise that we had 2 months ago. We said, let's bring the technical kids back. Let's see what we can do. Let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. And
Can't get 850 students safely into this building.
it's,
Jill, I'm not saying bring 850 kids safely in the building. We're at 613, 25%. All I'm saying is that 25% should be in shop. There's gotta be rooms around here with supervision, big rooms. Use the labs. We walked into a lab, make that a makeshift shop. It's a big open room. Whatever the shops were overfilled, sophomore teachers are with sophomores. I understand juniors and seniors can be together in the smaller shops. Painting, culinary, electronics, auto body. We could probably bring those 4 shops back 50%, 6 feet apart. If we do and use the related room.
so just to speak to that, as we pointed out, I think initially, there are, wait. I don't want to interfere with.
Just get
I think that's George, he asked for an escort to get up here.
Yeah, he wants to be part of the conversation, I guess, in person. So, to further examine the point, so 613 is 25%, right? So 850 is the total number for one shop week. So in order to make that happen, they would have to go to school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, full-time. Okay? So, again,
Hold on, out of that 613, we have 200 special ed, special needs. How many out of that
we,
613?
47,
Okay, no, that's,
47.
what do we, and sorry to stop, what are we doing with the tops now that we use in the cafeteria?
So they're going to the library.
Okay, because I want them here. I mean, I really want them at school.
And that's the priority, so they.
Right.
It will move to the library.
Okay, when I saw the calf, I'm sorry earlier, I wanted to ask that question. I have it written down, and I just
One of
jumped
the
around.
most favorable things that I heard from the administration today is that the smaller class size will enhance person-to-person teaching, which I think is very important. So there is a plus side to the model that's being presented. I'm hearing you say, can we get all the shop kids their required time within the 800 kids or the 600 kids? I haven't heard a satisfactory answer yet regarding, can we accommodate the shop kids in their shop by taking in the lecture area and so forth? Is that a possibility?
So how would we, to set up makeshift shops would be difficult for some shops.
No, I realize that, but they
Which
gave
ones?
us an extra 10 prep days
So
to do this.
electrical, which is tight, which is one of the shops that is difficult to fit to capacity, to create a makeshift electrical shop somewhere.
The
is-
power needs in
It's
itself
gonna
is
be
a problem.
very, very difficult.
What I'm saying is, I guess what I'm missing is, these kids are gonna be at home 3 days a week when they're supposed to be in shop on a laptop, working remotely. Why aren't they in the building doing the same thing under supervision? And that's where I'm getting stuck. And if it's not possible because we don't have enough help, is that what you're saying? We just don't have the help?
no,
So
I'm
we don't
not.
have the space, is what we're saying.
But what I'm saying is the academic, we're not gonna be here academic. They're gonna be learning remotely. So we opened up the whole academic rooms.
Well,
And then
Can I
who
speak to
is
that?
supervising,
So-
who is supervising
That's,
so
these
if,
students when their teachers are down?
who
in shop?
supervises them when they're in shop?
Their teachers.
Okay, so the teacher is gonna follow the kids. So the seniors and juniors are under Jill. The sophomores are under Lee. The sophomores can't fit in that shop or the related room. So we move them to this room. Lee follows the kids. The sophomore, the junior and senior teacher
So they're
teaches the
in the
kids.
building and they're not in shop anyway.
They could be. We could, in this room, I could use electrical. We can bring in wire. We can practice splices right there on the table. HVAC, they could do their OSHA hours for the gas
We
tests.
can do the OSHA hours from at home on a computer.
I agree with you. But they're in shop.
But the
So-
electrical box you could set on the table too, the fuse box.
You could.
could wire it, you just don't have power.
Right,
So-
you could.
So I guess if I
It's just
understand.
hands-on practical with the kids learning.
Sure, if I understand, where we're thinking here. So the goal would be to bring back all of the kids technically, right? So in A and X week, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, all of the kids would have their full full technical week, right? Is that what the thought is?
That's, I mean,
The premise?
you can throw the freshmen and put them in shops, right? Do the exploratories.
So if the premise is that 10th, 11th, and 12th all come back academically, so that's about 850 kids, so that would be the goal, if I understand it correctly.
Technically, yes.
Technically, okay. So then the question becomes, apart from having challenges with physical space, supervision, as well as
850 is only
providing,
half of the students.
and we're not even getting into whether it's 6 feet or 3 feet, but let's say it's 3 feet. So there are still.
Well, let's go with 6 because 3
Okay.
feet's out the door.
Okay, so let's go for 6. You cannot adequately fit them on all the shops at 6 feet socially
I
distanced,
give you that.
850.
Now we open up the academic rooms.
Okay, so with that being said, you've got a situation where out of 23 technical programs, you're going to need 23 supervisors or 23 setups in, not necessarily in every shop, but many of them. So that the,
So half.
I think it'd be much higher than half, to be honest. So,
Excuse me, I think there's a problem too of what the teacher's schedule is. You know, if I'm assigned, you know, sophomores, that's my schedule.
Would you-
There's some union issues here too.
The sophomore teacher's gonna be with the sophomore kids, so they're on schedule. And if
So
we
they're
eat in
gonna
the
come out of the
cafeteria,
shop and go into a classroom so they can accommodate.
say that again,
You're gonna move them from the shop into a classroom to accommodate them.
for space, to make sure we get the 6-foot space.
So
If
you
we
would
can't accommodate
need,
that shop, find a room big enough, say we're over 15, over 8, well, let's see.
6 feet
Six
or
to
whatever.
10, 6 to 10 kids can fit in the classroom on hybrid A. If a shop's over 10 kids, we find the room, then we can put the 10 kids in, the teacher follows them.
But where the other.
well,
10
there are
kids
very
are
few
by
shops that have
themselves.
10, so, you know.
That are over
again,
10?
There's many, so.
I don't have the shop numbers. I
Yeah, the
probably should
majority of
ask
them
for
are. You know, again, the premise that we talked about was, there are some shops that we could have them come in Monday, Tuesday, you know, Thursday and Friday, full capacity, all of them, right? Which would be great. But the problem is, you know, as a, you know, principal, and I can't, how do I go to a parent and say, okay, your student is electronics, you can come in full capacity. But unfortunately, medical student, because your shop is so popular, I can't let all of them in.
I guess what I'm saying is, I see your point, but there's enough rooms in here that are gonna be empty by
Right, but-
academics.
But I just need to continue for a minute, if you don't mind. So the challenge is with the splitting, okay, it becomes a supervision issue where you need a trained professional supervising these kids, particularly in an era of a pandemic, where the risk for taking off masks, the risk for close contact is really significant. And again, as I think you pointed out, with culinary, for example, there are many, many shops here that are collaborative in nature. And one of the things that the Department of Ed technical guidelines came out, the first sentence practically is 3 feet or 6 feet of social distancing should be maintained because we know that technical programs are by nature collaborative. So if you take kids and you put them in a room and there's no supervision, or there's someone that's not adequately trained, the risk for that is significant. So what I personally, I think our school district would be going against the guidelines that, and really, you know, the safety protocols of putting kids in a room that are not supervised by a professional or run the risk of
I
not being
guess I'm
supervised
missing
at
this.
all.
I guess I'm missing this. So if you're teaching culinary, you got the sophomores.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the freshmen, I got the junior and seniors. The shop can accommodate the juniors and seniors and freshmen. Okay, or whatever combination it is. There's 3 teachers in that shop. Okay, we
In some
take the
instances.
class that it can't accommodate, say the sophomores.
Mm-hmm.
There's a teacher, a sophomore teacher. He knows how to supervise, right? He's teaching them, correct? We move them into an academic classroom because those kids are remotely learning at home. That's big enough. We can get 6 to 10 kids in a class according to Model A, Hybrid A.
Mm-hmm.
You, Mr. Bowden, walk in with your 10 kids. That shop down at culinary is 6, they right now fit under the 6-foot guideline. So does the academic room that you can supervise because you're their teacher, doing that right there.
But
So that shop's all set. What I'm saying, I guess what I'm asking is, how many shops are over? And do we have the space in the next 10 days with that shop teacher going with them to supervise them
At 6 feet?
at 6 feet?
No, we don't.
So we
At
measured
6
all the
feet of
academic
dis-
rooms, we've already
so-
looked at these
so-
numbers.
Well, we have, certainly have, yes.
Okay,
So
then I'm done.
it-
Then
okay.
I'm done. That's it, we're good.
I can see where you're coming from.
I can't believe we don't have enough to supervise 613 kids when they're gonna be in the building.
Well,
But, Mike, it's all set.
Okay.
So it's all set.
That,
You know, I came in here tonight, like, I was guns blazing, because I want to bring all these kids back. I want to start school off the way we used to for years. But, you know, I've always been a fan of Miss Davis. I was a huge supporter of hers to be the superintendent. I'm going to support, you know, what she wants to do with this A model. And I don't think I know that she has the safety of our kids, you know, right up front. And I appreciate what, you know, her staff, Mike, you know, everything that you guys have done leading up to tonight. Like I said, if it were up to me, we'd be starting right out the gate with everybody here.
If we, like everybody else in the country, we're faced with this, and as we all know, we just put Miss Davis in the superintendent's chair, we would've been home 2 hours ago, because we would be open up by normal, it'd be cut and dry. But we don't, this is all new to us.
Right.
You know, regardless if you're a former shop teacher, or you've got a master's in academia, I mean, we're not Einsteins here, we're just trying to come up with the best proposal for our students out there. And you can put shop aside, it furthers the argument and the problem, but we're still faced with the same thing any other school is, and.
I mean, if it's hybrid A or hybrid B or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
What happens after
Jill,
week 2 if a kid
I'm
gets
just saying,
sick?
if you feel that's the way you wanna
What
go,
if someone gets sick?
I think you've taken these people's other considerations into mind, to the point that if there's something that, if things progress and it gets better, I'm sure you will implement something else or try something else. There might be baby steps involved,
I
but
think all along our goal is to get as many students as we can into the building.
Yep.
At the same time ensuring health and safety. That is the goal.
I can respect where the administration's come from. I just don't think the data supports in our community the slow down approach. I would be amenable to, at the next school committee meeting in September, we look at if we've had any issues, revisit accelerating the next phase before the quarter ends.
I'm sure we'll get a progress report every month.
I think we're gonna get it because they're on top of it. There's not a question in my mind. We're gonna be updated on every event because Superintendent Davis has done that all through the summer with the updates on what they're thinking. So at this point, I think we beat a dead horse. And we have to move forward with some decision. And maybe we can go with the administrator's plan, revisit it at the next school committee.
I'm not here to alleviate fears, but I'd like to hear a little more from my colleague, Mr. Bahu. I sense his concern. I know he was a little frustrated, but have you taken in the totality of what everyone has said and what we feel, or do you still have strong vibes on where you're coming from?
I think, personally speaking, the idea of possibly accelerating so that we could have more students in the building to prepare them to be work-ready is vital to their well-being. I believe that when people try to enter the workforce and they graduated at Greater Lowell Tech and they missed 6 months, 9 months of their education, and they get out into the workforce, and there's somebody that's teaching, that's running a framing company, or running an electrical company, or just trying to get some type of intern with him, and he sees, or her, and he sees that that person cannot really produce to the level that he thought that they may be able to, they're gonna push that person aside. And that works against their own personal well-being. And that's why I am asking in a very strong way, which probably is not the right way to go about it, but still in a very strong way, how do we get that student to be prepared so that when they graduate and take that diploma, they're actually ready to enter the workforce? You know, I asked you this question earlier today. What percentage of the kids that graduate high school here end up graduating college? It's not much. It's not a big number. Basically, they go back into the workforce. I want those kids job ready. I really do. That's vital to me.
I think we all do.
And I actually sense that everyone here is committed to the kids and their well-being. Some of us really have a strong belief on how to get there, but I think as a committee, we can make a very good decision for our community overall. And I really admire Fred when he gets all wound up because he really believes what he's that committed.
He's gone home.
This is a volunteer job for everybody in this room, and everybody in this room takes it seriously. And I gotta say, thank you to all of you. And we had very good debate today. I think we can probably move this in a direction.
And this is our school as far
I love
as,
this school.
this is the school committee for Greater Lowell. And we didn't speak about it much earlier, but we did bring up Notre Dame all these other colleges, how would you feel as a parent if your child got a chance to go to Notre Dame and this is happening and they're closing?
I don't know.
What would the Board of Trustees do? I'm not so sure. I don't have that answer either. All I can say is I'm concerned with this school. It's gonna take baby steps, in my opinion, and that's why I say we've put Miss Davis in that role, and she didn't expect this role. This was handed to her. She's gotta deal with it.
I think all the politicians have pushed it down to the lowest level possible to help make a decision. I sensed that after discussion with the administration today, they have given it appropriate due diligence to making a suggestion. I think they're open-minded, that they can maybe move up the schedule into a different phase, and we can look at it at the next school committee meeting. And I think we're ready to go forward from here. What do you guys think?
I agree.
If I might, I think no matter what we do, these kids that are in school now are not going to get the same quality education that previous classes have, because they're not going to have the time here. And no matter what we say or do tonight, if once school opens and we have a rash of kids or staff coming down with COVID-19, we may have to go the opposite way.
Right.
We may have to reduce time on learning, which I hope is not the case. So I think we have to start off somewhere, and if things go well, and there's no accelerated cases and things like that, there's no reason why we can't, accelerate the pace. I don't think we have much choice, because we have no idea how this is gonna go.
I think another thing, like Curtis says or Freddie says, but what does the governor say? 2 weeks down the road, he shuts all the schools down. I mean,
Well, that's a decision that's above us.
Yeah.
All right, but right now, they forced it down to the lowest level, and that's us. We have to make the decision based on the data and the information that we have available to us.
I'm going to the recommendation of what the superintendent who we hired.
And then the other thing that we talked about tonight, because I think we're all on board at the moment, is do we look into the thermometers and the temperature check as a statistical screening at the entrances as they come in? I think Jill's suggested that she would look into that to see the feasibility.
I think that's, without saying that, they should be tested on the way in.
And then I feel that there should be some also testing to make sure that our deep cleaning is effective, that there is no sign of that friggin' virus anywhere in this building. So we just need some random swab tester at the door switches or the handles or the light switches or
Well,
the shop tools.
Tonight, under normal circumstances, I would have walked up the stairs and I would have held onto the rail. And right there, I could have been, picked up some germs, whatever.
Just for clarification,
Not with our deep cleaning though.
just for clarification, Mr. Gigi, how often do you want that swab tested?
Oh, I'm just thinking that maybe on a weekly basis, whatever the administration might, to ensure that our cleaning is in fact effective and that we don't have any problem areas. And it can be done randomly on a statistical, haphazard way. And I would test the main entrances. I would probably look at the lavatories. Maybe you test the shop tool every now and then too, because that's something the kids are gonna be using. And I don't know if it gets cleaned on a regular basis.
So the shop tools have to be cleaned. If they're shared tools, they have to be cleaned before, first of all, it's discouraged that anything is shared. And anything that is shared has to be disinfected before the next individual uses it.
Okay, so they have all the wipes in the
So just like in a
classroom.
classroom, once a student enters a classroom, they have to wipe down their desk and it's, when they leave the classroom, they have to wipe it down. When they enter the next classroom, they have to wipe it down.
Two quick things, because we went off subject regarding that as far as the temperature. My other job, I happen to shuttle an employee to BAE in Nashua. Now, BAE is a huge employer. They set up a portable checkpoint on their grounds. So when you drive up, I was dropping this employee off. It happened to be a woman. I don't know if she was a nurse. I didn't question her authority. I didn't question what she was doing, but obviously the employee knew. They were taking everyone's temperature beyond that point, and I told her that I was just dropping this employee off, and she had the gun, or whatever they call it, pointed at your forehead, and I said, just out of fun, I says, what was mine? She says, you were within range. So I didn't question what is within range, but that's all they did, and they allowed you to move forward. I just turned around and dropped the guy
Yeah,
off.
the one I have at the office, or the few I do.
But I don't know if she was a nurse or anything. I mean, she wasn't in a security uniform or nothing, but
I'm not qualified to use
Yeah.
the damn thing, but it's just a preliminary parameter to
Yeah.
say, hey, you're within this range, and if you hit this, then maybe I'll see you on another day.
And I was just gonna ask Jill, for the sake of how things change, the state, or through the governor or Department of Education, where would he stand now? I know they've changed some things to assist us relative to SATs and MCAS.
So we have not gotten any feedback on MCAS yet for this school year, so we're waiting to hear in regards to MCAS.
It looks like they ain't gonna have it.
Update you on PSATs and SATs, Mike?
I'm sorry?
Can the damn
PSATs and SATs, yes. So in the hybrid plan, we put information about PSATs and SATs. Similar to last spring, I believe that will be conducted online. However, I know that there are some locations that have been identified currently in the local area that we actually put in the plan. I believe we put them by name in the plan, so that students can take advantage of that. And incidentally, another reason why we were concerned about academic being in person 1 day a week is to provide in-person school counseling and college career counseling as well. So that was something that was in the forethought of our minds regarding PSATs and SATs and college applications and things of that nature. And
Jill-
career applications as well as in union applications and things of that nature. It's easier to communicate with kids face to face.
Thank you. Has the transportation money remained the same? In view of the fact that the buses are only gonna be able to carry half, so obviously you need more buses, more drivers.
So right now, we are the same. Right now, we need almost 40 buses to transport.
Has the governor committed more resources or finances down the
Also in
road?
regards to busing.
He hasn't ruled it out.
No.
He hasn't ruled it out,
Ruled it
though.
out, but we haven't gotten any information in regards to additional funding.
That's something we as a committee need to be apprised of or
Right,
concerned with down
transportation
the road.
is a big factor
Could use the CR.
for many districts in COVID-19. Many districts have given up their transportation. And because they couldn't afford to have transportation. So many districts are saying to families, you need to be able to get your children to school if you want them to come to school, because we can't afford the transportation. We're lucky that at this time, we're able to provide transportation for the 600 students, because without transportation, our students wouldn't be able to come here. Because as you know, many of them come from the city of Lowell, and they use the transportation that we provide. So transportation is critical for our students as well. And right now, with the 613 students that we're bringing, we're using approximately 40 buses.
Thank you.
And when we move to the hybrid mode 2, we'll probably need another 9 or 10 buses, which is going to be some more money for us that we need to put into our budget.
Thank you for sharing
Another
that.
$300,000 or $400,000 if if I'm not mistaken. Mr. White's coming up here in a minute to talk about the budget, and we looked into the cost of bring those additional 8 buses that we will need when we move to hybrid mode B.
If a motion's in order, I move we adopt the superintendent's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Well, I would suggest on the motion with the suggestion that we made, I might accelerate the quarterly review. So essentially, after the next meeting, we can move to phase 2.
So then,
And if the situation is that fluid that it might demand an emergency meeting, I mean, it is what it is, we'll respond accordingly.
just to let you know, Mr. Gee, the next meeting is, I think, 3 days after school opens.
Well, that's too soon.
Yeah.
But
If I'm not
October,
mistaken.
we could do October maybe, right?
Yes.
That makes sense.
And thanks for bringing that to our
We will have
attention.
more data, more information too, about who's exactly coming to school, who's chosen remote, who's out a lot, and we'd have a more clear
Well-
picture.
What's the official start date now?
The official start date of school is September 14th.
Yeah, so September 14th would be coming in here.
Yeah, it's really late. I didn't realize
That'd
it
be
was
just,
that late.
not enough time.
Yeah, the governor reduced the time in school to 170 days, to include 10 additional days for teachers to receive professional development and training and plan and prepare for students to come back to school or to prepare for remote learning. And that was a required 10 days.
So then, let's just modify the motion to include a review to accelerate the program in October at the school committee.
Yeah, that's fine with me. You still second that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a vote?
Mr. Getchell?
No.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes,
Mr. O'Hare?
George?
Mr. O'Hare?
Yeah.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good job, Joe.
Thank you.
I have a motion to approve the revised fiscal year 21 budget.
Do you want to see it first?
Oh, no, yeah, we need to talk about it.
You're gonna step in? Does it taste like pizza? Is that incredible?
Same shirt.
I thought maybe you finally got a shirt.
All right, so
The revised FY21 budget, this is based off of the legislative agreement that has been made between the House Ways and Means Commission for the state to adjust the numbers that were produced in the spring of last year with regards to state funding, minimum local contributions, and educational net school spending. So our main adjustments to the budget have taken place as a result of this agreement from the memorandum of understanding at the budget level at the state. They've reduced our Chapter 70 number as well as our net school spending requirement and minimum contributions to our communities, totaling a budget reduction of $1,957,562. The majority of that coming in the state aid categories, about 1.54 million of that is direct state aid. So almost a direct correlation of the reduction of what we were talking about previous being the Student Opportunity Act at this point, although these are still preliminary numbers and they're still waiting for some federal guidance The feeling is that this will be our minimum level, so we're looking to adopt a budget at the minimum level for our commitment at this time. And then as the budget shakes out, should there be additional funding, we'll look to bring that back and adjust the budget at that point as well. It should be noted, I know the question about transportation came up about funding. There has been no decision made about that. The state is still gathering data because so many districts had to amend their contracts at the end of last year. Generally, the transportation funding, not generally, is based off of the actual spend across the state, and then the percentage that can be doled out to each community is based on what they spent. So as a result of the reduction in our transportation costs last year, I've taken a aggressive estimate, I would say, as to where the transportation reimbursement will align. But with any luck, this is what the number will look like coming back from the state.
So Mike, on the transportation, we could actually go into the COVID relief fund if we had to, correct?
We could. That would be an applicable cost that we could charge off to the ESSER grant or the CVRF grant. There's,
Yeah, I'm looking at the ES grant, I'm not,
yeah,
that's the CARES Act, I figure you're gonna use that for the PPE and all that stuff. The transportation, which, Joe, you and I talked Friday about it, we're gonna get hit. Even if we rolled it out to 50%, we were gonna get hit with extra money.
yeah,
I just wanna make sure we have that money sitting there in a fund or a grant, so to speak, and
sure. And there have been other costs that we did face, technology, other things along those lines that was sort of earmarked into those grants, but I have made some other budget decisions, and even through the spring of last year, it was always a forward-thinking process, I think, from Jill and myself. So I can show you a little bit about that and the effect of missing net school spending because of the closure, not intentionally, but because of the closure, and how that sets us up effectively for the coming year. So when I look at the notable changes in our budget, I tried to break it down into a 5-category phase here to make it a little bit easier rather than going line by line, although I did provide you the line by line differences. But the first being this net school spending miss from the FY20 year that I talked about, and how that's actually helping to reduce our budget in this year. I adjusted all of the salaries based on the information that we had available currently. So lane changes come up in the fall or in the spring timeframe after the budget is developed. We have new hires, we have retirements, we have positions in and out, transfers. So taking into account those was about a net change, increasing the budget just shy of 30,000. We had some Student Opportunity Act items that we had initially thought about, items and positions, when we clarified that we're no longer including in the budget because that funding isn't definite at this point. Looking at some of our equipment needs that we had coming into the FY21 year budget and using money in FY20 that we saved due to closure and things along those lines to fund those items ahead of time so that the FY21 budget money would free up. And then, of course, the establishment of that transportation revolving account that we voted back in the June meeting, I believe it was, and the effect of that to help reduce the budget as well. And I would like to point out that although we did reduce the equipment and supplies lines, including software and professional development and other items from the SOA plan, I don't know that there's a single item that wasn't salary related that we did not fill on that list. I think the entirety of
The
everything
text,
that
the
wasn't
media, the
position-based, text, media, technology, all of that we were able to purchase ahead of time. So those resources are available and in the hands of the educators at this point. So the net school spending miss is something that is not, it was a function of closing school early. And as a result, we have to spend the money that we missed net school spending by. So in order to do that, I looked for the biggest expenditure that occurs early in the year, which is our Middlesex County assessment, which is due every year. And I went right ahead and I said, okay, well, we can roll over the money from FY21 because it's already been appropriated by the school committee, and we can use that money to then take a big expenditure off the table for FY21. So we were able to pay a $1.3 million expense right off the top. We were also able to adjust the curriculum professional development line down just a little bit by getting some things ahead. And then we looked to, because this is a one-time funding or one-time funding source, look to one-time funding costs. So looking at some of the projected needs we will have next year for long-term substitutes or substitute teachers or building substitutes, fill-in positions that will help with the staffing through the year next year. And then also aligning money to curriculum for text materials, media and materials. And this had a lot to do with some of the concerns that were heard earlier. I know there's no substitute for hands-on learning, but we looked at, and we've got a lot of the shops looking at softwares. Specifically, I know the construction cluster's got something coming called Interplay, which works on plumbing, electrical, and carpentry shop lessons and helps to direct those online. But again, earmarking that towards hopefully one-time use items, because we'll hopefully be clear of this in the future, but using that as a mechanism to help drive the budget next year. When we talk about personnel expenditure, this list probably looks a little bit familiar, but it's a lot shorter than previous conversations we had. We were able to, within this budget, fit two of the positions that were included in the Student Opportunity Act, that being the English Language Education Parent Liaison, as well as an additional guidance or a school adjustment counselor. Beyond that, we had some technical positions in the budget initially. The auto collision and health assisting pre-nursing budget or positions were in the LEA budget initially, and you can see here now we're only carrying about $20,000 of that cost, and that's because we were able to move those positions to the Perkins grant. The Perkins grant allows for expansion of technical program staffing for a period of 3 years to phase them in. So the goal would be that even if funding has a hit next year, they'll still be able to almost completely support those positions. We also looked at the engineering position and noted that as a critical need in the technical area. So we're able to fund that position. And then because of our commitment to ROTC, that remained in the budget, as well as the athletic training expansion, which is still, I guess, a little bit fluid because guidelines came out 2 days ago or yesterday for athletics. So we're still, that one may or may not be filled depending on how that all plays out. So the net effect is our budget is reduced by that nearly $2 million to a total of $47,420,413. And from the picture noted, you can see that we have balanced revenues to expenditures, and that is the probably highest level overview I can give on the budget.
Mike, I have one question that just sort of like threw me off.
Sure.
And it came down to like a salary. We had a new assistant dean or a dean hired, and I think I have a page here.
I think I already know this one.
Yeah,
So I can tell you off the,
24.
it's the weird longevity line that I had in there at 12,000 or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm referring to.
That should have been relabeled. That's not really longevity. What that is the two assistant is it assistant principal or senior? I'll get the title wrong, but the assistant principal, there was overlap in their position for training and onboarding. So that's not actually a longevity cost. That's actually just the cost to have them working concurrently over the summer, leading up to the retirement.
Oh, okay, so it was sort of a training period.
Yeah, it
and they
was a
got
little bit of
paid.
overlap on the positions, poorly noted in the book, definitely, but the assistant principal.
A one-time thing.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't roll it into salary, or even if I had rolled it into salary, that would have
Yeah,
looked,
That would look a little, yeah, somebody coming in too high.
yeah, someone coming in at the top of the
Yes,
top,
that-
I think, or even above the top if I had left it as the salary number.
So the salary number is the salary number.
Is the
and
first,
that's
in
how
the
you-
first column.
Right, and that's how you made
Yeah.
a tone for the added
That was more,
training wage to sort of,
It was more a note for
overlap.
me that I probably should have removed after the fact, but a note for me that I knew there was going to be overlap between the positions and the associated cost with that. Should have been relabeled and or removed after the fact, but yeah, that's
Okay,
what that was.
great. And we had a new carpentry teacher hired. It seems like he came in at the top of the scale. Was there,
So he was here, he was a long-term sub and worked last year, and then we rehired him.
okay, and he came in at a higher
Yeah,
rate?
he was a
than-
prior technical teacher.
Oh, he was a technical
Worked in a-
teacher?
Yes, he was prior technical teacher in a technical high
Was
school.
he a lateral from
So
another
he
school?
had some credit from teaching as well as his years of experience in the trade, the carpentry instructor.
So let me just ask, how many years of
There's a formula that we use to establish the salary for technical teachers, and it's really years of experience. They get credit for a certain number of years of experience that moves them down the column and step.
Up and over?
Yes. Education is over and years of experience is down. And there's a formula for that. Kathy could speak more to the formula of
Sure.
years of
Yep,
experience.
I've seen
So,
it before.
yeah, he was an experienced teacher.
Okay, great, thank you.
You good?
There are no questions?
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes,
Mr. O'Hare?
Still here?
So, here,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
thank you.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes,
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
And then I did have another late addition to the budget, the discussion about CEP, which is community eligibility provisions for the food service program. And I'm not gonna seek a motion on this one tonight because initially the number that was presented as the free and reduced population number was about 55% of our population, which from a financial perspective made us almost a break even if we went to the community eligibility provisions. When I went through the application process yesterday and as early as this morning, reviewing it and redoing it, our actual percentage, because they only count free, they don't count reduced in the community eligibility provisions, our actual percentage dropped to about 40%, which you could still participate. The financials are just, they're not feasible for us at that level. If we creep up and we get closer to that 55, I think it's definitely something to entertain for the future. But when I started modeling with the 40% number, we were looking at deficits every year that I did from I took actual meal counts from the last couple of years and projected under CEP what the revenue shortfall would be, and they were over $100,000, close to 150 depending on the year. So I think we can table that one for the time being until either things change or community eligibility might change their formula in the future.
so you may recommend that we get rid of the CEP?
No, we don't even have to sign up. So we're
Sign
just
up
gonna
for it.
continue school lunch. Well, I won't say
The way
we'll
it is.
continue it as the way it is, but we'll continue it financially the way it's run.
Okay, and let me ask, Jill, how about the LPN program?
So the LPM program will be running. They will be doing a hybrid model as well, with half of their students in the building and half of their students running remotely. They are also limited right now to being able to go out on clinical, which they are aggressively fighting that. And they have a meeting with some of the people from the Department of Education, from what I hear on Monday,
Okay, so,
to try to be able to go out on clinical.
right, they're having a hard time
So
getting
They
out?
will be starting, actually Monday is a day of training for them, and then they will be starting the following week. And we worked out a way where they would be coming in later than our students, so they wouldn't have to be in direct contact with them. And,
And we're starting with the full number of 80?
no, they're doing a hybrid.
Right, which is 40 in the day, but we have the
So
full
20 and 20.
20 and 20, the night part. How about the day program?
The day program is doing the same. They're splitting half and half.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
And we are also starting the night program for, just our general night program, other than LPN. We'll also be holding that as well.
Okay, good to hear.
It'll be all directly on the first floor, in the rooms, down that hallway, but as you go down to auto, they'll be using those 3 rooms as well as the cafeteria. Those are our largest rooms.
Sure. Good to hear.
So
Any old business? New business? It's been brought to my attention that a vote of the school committee to name the gymnasium after George Cooler Harris cannot be found in the school committee's minutes, despite the fact that the dedication of the gymnasium to Mr. George Cooler Harris has already occurred. Therefore, I am requesting a formal vote of the school committee to name the gymnasium after Mr. George Cooler Harris.
So
Motion.
moved, I move that
Second.
motion.
Second, I mean, this already happened, right?
This has already happened a few years ago, yeah.
Second.
A few years ago.
All right, I
Someone's-
second it, and if
someone's
it
looking
happened,
better, you know.
Second,
So we'll need a vote.
Mr. Getchir?
yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes,
Mr. O'Hare?
George?
George?
Mr. O'Hare,
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Couldn't hear that.
that's okay.
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes. Committee person motions, there are none.
If I, well,
Report of the script committee, Mr. Sheehan?
like, this might be the wrong section, but, you know, since we were just talking about naming something, me personally, and we can bring this up at the next meeting, but I'd like to suspend all meetings of the subcommittee of the naming committee until further, that we sit down with legal counsel. The reason why I say that is because, and I'm sure every committee member has seen the emails and, you know, maybe some people got phone calls or whatever, but a former employee here wants to have something named after him, and he's threatened the chairman, he's threatened the superintendent, and I think that any and all transactions going forward be done through our legal counsel. That's what they're here for. I don't answer to threats or anything like that, and I don't think the superintendent or the chairman should either. So I would like to see any of these subcommittee meetings in regards to naming anything in this facility suspended until further notice, until we get guidance from, you know, our legal team, and that anything that comes in, Ms. Davis has enough on her plate right now. She doesn't need this nonsense, and that's all this is nonsense, and neither does the chairman.
So you're looking for a report and recommendation from legal?
Yes, absolutely. I think
I
everything
think that's a good move.
going forward should go through our legal counsel. If there's people who want to threaten the chairman and the superintendent, that's just not called for. That's baby tactics. And that's just not how you get things done.
I can speak, I mean, I received a letter and I had no idea what it was about. And, I talked to you, Paul, and
Yeah,
now there's
right,
no,
right, yeah.
I
Well,
agree, there's no,
Ever since that letter, I mean, it hasn't stopped.
No,
It's
and again,
weekly,
there's no
weekly.
need of, I mean,
It's bothering, you know, he doesn't need that. Neither does the superintendent or her administration. Like, that's why I'd like to see, and it's not like the subcommittee meets a lot, but until the superintendent and the chairman sit down with legal counsel, which should be the very last thing that either of them do, because, you know, the superintendent and her administration has plenty on her plate already, that we don't need, this district doesn't need this nonsense at all. That's all I got.
Point well taken. Thank you, Matt. I'm gonna need to go into executive session. I'm gonna need a vote. Are there gonna be any votes after?
Are we going into executive session, are you saying?
That's what it says, yeah.
Oh, yes, we need to go into executive session.
I'll move further.
Back for a minute.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Getchia?
Executive session.
Yeah.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Oh, I know.
Go ahead.
Mr. O'Hare?
Pay attention.
I didn't hear my name mentioned. George O'Hare, yes, so George O'Hare.
Thank you.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Okay.
Back on. Just motion to adjourn.
No.
Now you gotta vote.
We need to vote on ratifying the contracts for
Okay.
the paraprofessionals and the support staff.
All right, so someone made the motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to ratify the contract for the support staff.
Second.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Mr. O'Hare?
Do I have to withdraw from this right now?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. O'Hare.
Okay, so I'm right out of this. Anything else that is gonna?
Yeah, you need to hold on for the next vote, please.
Okay, good.
Mr. Tatsias? Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the Paris contract.
Second.
Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second. Mr. Getchia?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias? Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.